Hi, I'm Angela Roberts, Executive Assistant, and today we're going to get to know Robert Zhang, the founder and CEO behind Pure Value Capital, a hedge fund that he started 9 years ago. Since then, the company has produced a 34.5% compound gross annual return and a total aggregate of 13.5x. But I know Robert has a very philosophical approach to investing, and he's really big on the why behind his decisions. So today we'll talk about how he thinks, makes decisions, and builds his company. So to start, how did you get started with your hedge fund?
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. Before that, I want to sort of give a little bit of background on why we want to start a podcast and build the sort of the Pure Value Media side of things alongside with Pure Value Capital, and why I want to have this platform to be able to express, speak, but also hopefully can inspire other people as well. So the idea behind it has been this thought of having a investment career and the journey, entrepreneurial journey, that was unique to mine. But also, hopefully, people can find components here and there that are interesting to them, that hopefully can inspire them. And also on the podcasting side, I started this in 2018, actually. It was a great friend of mine, Roy. Shout out to Roy. The podcast is called RZ 2 Cents. It's still available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the podcast platforms out there. It's called RZ 2 Cents because his first name and last name are RZ, mine as well. So, and everybody has their opinion, so we call it RZ 2 Cents. It was about 50 plus episodes, and at the time, we sort of just really got together every Tuesday night in downtown LA at his, he was going to USC at the time, and at his downtown LA apartment on a Tuesday night, that we get together and just talk about things. And that was our routine to hang out as friends. And we sometimes look at the stars and dream and talk about we think sophisticated ideas and thoughts, and at the time, what do we do, what's the occupation to do after college, after graduating, what other things we were thinking about from a relationship standpoint, when should people get married, how do we think about marriages, how are we thinking about our careers versus the last generation of our parents, and all kind of different things. Or philosophically, how does the idea of death defines us? Everyone eventually is going to die, unfortunately or fortunately. So how does that change our life, right? The idea of mortality, all those kind of things. And Roy and I did this for about 2 years, every week almost. And 50 plus episodes. And in 2020, he's originally from Canada. He moved back to Vancouver. So we're still on the same time zone. So we did a few remote episodes. And then eventually he moved to Asia, and we're on different time zones now. It's harder to produce consistent content. And it was an idea, we called it the idea of legacy for grandchildren, at least how I defined it in our intro episode. People can still find that on my Instagram and also on the RZ 2 Cents episodes podcast. That I talk about how at the time, I looked at it as if when we grew up, eventually when we get older, our parents to get to know who we are, what we are like. They see us from 0 years old, or 1, 2, 3, 5, all the way to your 30s, 40s, if they're around. But we never get to know what our parents and grandparents were like when they were young. So at the time, I was 24, I was like, what I wanted to know what my dad was doing and thinking, how he was acting at 24 years old. I don't have access to that besides some photos or how he describes it, or his friends and family members' memories. So I want to leave some information and content and footage out there for if my grandchildren are interested, or my children are interested, and they can look into what he was like in his 20s and later on. So that was the original idea of starting RZ 2 Cents, the previous podcast with my friend Roy. And shout out to Roy, and you're welcome to come on anytime. I love to talk to you as a guest speaker, and I miss you. So with Pure Value Media podcast, that I think after this, as you mentioned, we got lucky with our record, with the tailwind of U.S. capital markets, and the last 9 years has been great for us. And I believe S&P compounded somewhere around 14%, where we did 34%. So there were definitely know-hows and things I think we might just fortunately got right in terms of how we invest and how we are able to build a great portfolio to stand the test of time. But there's more than that. There are the decision making behind it. There are the philosophies behind it. There's a discipline. There are ways how to think. And I think that might translate into other arenas of life, not
For sure.
just in finance, in investing. So it is about financial literacy, but it's also more about how these philosophies can translate to different arenas of life. Can translate into your physical fitness. Can translate into your family relationship building, into a lot of things. These long-term value-oriented approach, and also this long-term more understanding value creation. Value not as in cheap, but as in value creation, and this long-term compounding approach mindset of things. So we'll see where this goes. I have a few guests in mind that we arranged and coming up. Some of them are really good friends of mine. Today I have the Pure Value team here. Yourself, Angela, and Ryan will come on, and then we'll discuss all things Pure Value Capital. And hopefully in the future we can do what I said I wanted to do. We are aspire to inspire. So that's the goal, and hopefully this is on to another journey for not just years, but decades.
Create some history.
Yep. Thank you.
So I want to go back to more of your origin story. You had some money to invest and start a business. Why a hedge fund business?
I think it was the simplicity of you can put thought into action through. I ran a logistically quite heavy business, the e-commerce one with importing and sort of selling product, go to market. We had both 2B and 2C businesses. With investing, the thought is complex. I'm looking at the stuff that's around our offices, the philosophies and the mindset we put behind it. We're able to sort of putting thoughts, complex ideas, conceptually together. And when you need to execute, when you're ready to execute, the execution just click through a button. Just one click of a button and you can execute. It's the opposite of running a complex logistic warehouse, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that really appealed to me. And the book named by the late great Daniel Klickman, Thinking Fast and Slow, that really sort of inspired me as well. I read that during my flights to New York City in 2018, my second year of running a full-time. Basically 3 different round-trip flights to New York City, 18 hours on the plane, finished the whole book. That changed my thinking quite a lot. I would say from a biological perspective, that's also that's what they say, when men grow their prefrontal cortex, their rational thinking engine. At 24 years old, reading Thinking Fast and Slow was probably the life-changing because it grew my prefrontal cortex from a risk-seeking individual or from someone who wasn't getting great grades in high school or college to be thinking more systematically and better to make decisions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So now that we know the origin story, I want to jump into something a little fun from my first week. You had me design these posters around the office.
Yep.
Tell us more about these.
Okay, so we'll start with this original one first. This is literally, because you can't find it anywhere, I created a term of, I thought about over the years, the best investments guided by our 3 Ps, product, people, price. The modern value investors, sort of the approach to things, and the traditional deep value generally look at price. What's cheap? What's fundamentally? What's the net to debt ratio? What's the book value? And they go buy stocks that way. But those are price driven. And growth investors, the sort of and they have great imagination. They're generally in Silicon Valley, and they're great. And they're looking at the potential of a TAM, a total addressable market of a product or business, and they look at a product. But they might ignore the price and might be playing into the bubble, sometimes overpay for things. So I want to combine the two of looking at a product and price. So the combination of a growth investor and value investor, combining the combination of that, but also the middle is people. Because at the end of the day, it's people that's out there doing the work, making product services that might change the world or create a defensible business moat. And that people side of things are often underrated. People don't look at the CEO is enough. We do a lot of work on the CEO backgrounds, earnings calls. Do they change their tones? And how do they adjust their expectations? Those type of things. We look at the entrepreneurs themselves. So the 3 Ps are what's guiding our decision-making process every step of the way for every investment decision we make at Pure Value Capital are product, people, and price.
Awesome.
So that's the original. Yeah.
That's great.
And we have, why don't we go, the power of tiny gains. This is obviously sort of more of a generic version, people understand it. I have a compounding calculator I can pull out anytime to sort of show people like your, for example, this one, it's great since Angela helps our operations and is not on our investment team, so this is a very great live test. For example, Angela, what would you say the rate of return needed for you to 10x your money in 10 years? Just give me a number.
I don't know.
10x, like a 5% annualized return, 8%?
To 10x?
Yeah, in 10 years.
Maybe 50?
50. right?
Yeah.
We'll go with that. It's just like 50, right?
Yeah.
So you need annualized return of 50% a year to, in 10 years, you have 10x your current like net worth, right? So that's the, okay. The actual number is 25 and a half.
Oh.
So because with compounded annual growth return like that, with years of compounding, actually the later portion, it's like a snowball. It grows more and more. And then I always tell people this, the 20% of $10,000, 2,000. But if you're growing to, in monetary terms, you go to $1 million, 20% is 200K. And if you are 10 million, 20% is $2 million. So if you improve your thinking by 2% during that year, you just made an additional 2% on $10 million, just made 200 grand. If you improving your thinking by 20%, you made $200 million that year. So things compound through that time. And this literally, obviously, the great Arnold Schwarzenegger also talked about this during his bodybuilding career, that 1% better every day compounds to Mr. Olympia. It's sort of incremental progress and progress overload, adding a little bit to the bar every day, and then you get to a larger outcome. And the same works in reverse. So again, indulge when you want to. Generally, people who know me well know that 80-20 rule, 20% of the time you should do what you want, but 80% of the time you got it by this point. But if you sort of go with 5 bags of French fries every night at midnight, and next day, or the most important thing, it's not even, those health things are sort of more relatable, but the most important thing is who you surround yourself with. So I think if you hang out with the wrong people, or the people who doesn't have the same aspirations or the same energy around you for your life, longer, and longer, you become more and more like them. That 1% decline over time goes to very small, and that 1% improvement goes there. So be careful with our choices and the power of tiny gains. That's the rationale behind that one.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
And our final one here.
So this guy kind of guides how I want to spend time, and what we internally, team, when we do resource allocation, this is the resource that people should think about more preciously, is time, right? So I generally want to allocate our time, our calendars for effective use, especially for the head of the snake, from the leadership position. My time is also very valuable to help everybody else to be in line too. So urgent and important. When things are done right, this quadrant shouldn't be around too much.
Yeah.
Because when things are important, they should be taken care of. They shouldn't become urgent, right?
Yeah.
So we want to spend most of our time here. Important, but not urgent. This long term, for example, reading. It's important, but not urgent, but they build thought process for a long time. Important, not urgent things like your health, like all these type of things that we do to prepare for us to perform at our best. Especially, I would say that the concept around long-term thinking and building thesis, those things, and thinking about product and services, thinking about how we look at a certain industry, certain different ways, or we might not invest in healthcare industry today, but how we look at it, how does it change? Patients get care, how do drugs delivery change if there's no PPM? All those type of things are the important but not urgent quadrant. And then urgent, not important things, if one or two are done correctly, this shouldn't, urgent but not important, like we need to take care of it. Like sometimes, if the AC is not working in the office, like it's urgent, but like we just gotta go take care of now and then try to solve those as soon as possible, and then sort of spend little time here. But when they happen, definitely have the positive energy, still do it with a smile and take care of, get it done. Last one, don't spend any time here. Not urgent, not important. This is, typically people understand urgency, but they should understand importance. And if it's not urgent, and it's not even that important, like for example, like probably scrolling through certain things and things like that, then that should be eliminated. And even with the content, you spend time watching and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to, for example, pure value media. I think it's a valuable investment of time. It's important but not urgent. We won't tell you how to make $100 tomorrow, but the philosophies can translate to help you hopefully do a lot more with your life and translate into different things. So that's in that second quadrant, if it makes sense.
Well said.
Cool.
Okay, now
Thank you.
it's time for Ryan's time to shine.
So the wisdom, knowledge, information is something I thought a lot about as we are in an information bombarded world today. So much information coming in every day at us. You wake up, your phone's buzzing all the time. We want to digest information well, but most importantly, I think you want to sort of look through the information, see if there's knowledge, if there's a consistent tools that you can learn from and process those. And then wisdom. Wisdom is timeless. So knowledge changes. It's knowledge that needs for one to find a job, to have a good career, or do the type of things that people want. In the AI era, might be different than dot-com internet era. And internet era might be very, very different than pre-internet era. Knowledge changes, knowledge shifts. You want to adapt and learn, and that generally it is not the easiest process, and one, it rewards lifelong learning. But wisdom is something, I think there's a book, I think by Morgan Housel as well, it's called Same as Ever. It talks about 23 principles that don't change over time. So wisdom, once you acquire it and you can apply throughout life, different scenarios, I think it's really, really good. So absorb as much information as you can, but be careful with the sources and don't get too bombarded. Having a focus on gaining usable knowledge and the knowledge that apply to you, to yourself, your career, things like that, through different eras. But knowledge do change, and one has to adapt and learn. And wisdom, hold on to those timeless ones. Those, if you get lucky with good upbringing and things like that, generally your parents teach you some of that too. And but also you can learn from this, stand on the shoulder of the giants and pick up a lot more and apply those. So that's wisdom. So Ryan will join me to talk about some of these key ideas. Ryan, why don't you guide us with this quote?
You're looking for three things generally in a person: intelligence, energy, and integrity. And if they don't have the last one, don't even bother with the first two. I mean, yeah, that's something you and I talk about almost every day when it comes to the last sentence especially. The integrity part is the most important, but expand on that. Yeah,
just being a good person. I think this sometimes goes with intuition. You kind of can tell if somebody's a good person. Do they want the best for other people? Are they being kind? Or for me, authenticity matters a lot more too. Like, are they being authentic who we are? Or are they people all generally, we're all role-playing life a little bit at different times, but generally the more authentic we can be, the better actually it's for communication, for other people can understand you better. And then you build a better teamwork situation or relationship building that way. So this is great. And again, it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. I think integrity is a must. And intelligence comes in different forms. Some people have more visual art intelligence. Some people have more conceptual thinking intelligence. Some people have different ways of intelligence. That's okay. And energy-wise, also people thrive in different situations. Some people have all-day energy. That's rare, but generally morning or night or different, or extroversion situations or introvert energy. That's also different. Social energy, that's different. So seeing how people react in different situations and how I think that's needed too. So it's a very nuanced, idiosyncratic situation.
Sweet. Let's talk about this poster here.
Yep.
Values guide every choice. Abilities scale impact. Skills solve problems. I mean, could this have a better placement than on top of all of your books here that we have? Some great reads that you've recommended to me, but tell us more about what this quote means.
So this one, I think typically this is kind of similar, like looking to people in a sense where skills are something. If you sort of run a LinkedIn job post, there's people have different skills. That certain people can do math problems, some people can know how a camera works, and some people can do well in writing an article. So skills generally solve an immediate problem. Ability is one's ability to communicate, ability to adapt, ability to think, ability to organize information, organize literal space, organize warehouse. So those are abilities. And values, again, that's back to sort of the integrity thing. Do they value hard work? Do they value deep thinking? Do they value communicate, behave transparently? That's something that's very underrated in finance. Do people value, being honest, protecting the cathedral inside the casino, to behave in an honest way that's execute their fiduciary responsibility to their dependable partners and limited partners and investors that way? I think it's essential for a company or person's long-term survival. The values are that's the North Star, that's the guiding light. Getting that right, abilities can be acquired, I think, on a 3 to 5 year time frame, and the skills can be learned in a 6 month to 12 month time frame. But values are generally hard to retain and change, and people typically sort of have that already coming in, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Let's head over here. I would say this is actually my favorite corner out of all of our posters that we have.
Yeah, we designed a lot of these too.
Yeah,
Put them together.
It's well diversified, and it shows
Yep.
The more human side, I guess there is.
Absolutely.
Let's start off. I kind of want to end on this one.
Cool.
But let's start off with this one up here.
Yep.
Things that matter, things you can control, what you should focus on. Obviously, we're
Yep.
focusing on what seems to be the smallest portion of here, but
Yep.
why is it that that's what's important to
So
focus on?
literally, things you can control are, there are a bunch, and there's things we can't control. Like we had a heavy rain for a week or something. Like
Yeah.
that. You can decide to live in SoCal, but you literally just can't call someone and be like, yo, don't rain tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like God doesn't work that way. So things that matter, but the weather does matter, but we can't control it. So that's a good example. Like it matters, but like we can't control it. Just have to deal with it and carry life with the same fortitude. And there's things we can control that sort of don't matter, and things from personal details to things like certain things, how people conduct their day. There's certain decisions that doesn't have to be, it needs to be streamlined so they can make a better decision about the important things. So those are things you can control. So only the middle, that piece is what we should focus on, is that this thing matters to the long-term outcome of what you want, of where you stand in life, and you can control that aspect. It's generally, I think, attitude is free. Once attitude going to anything, it's free. Honesty, transparency is free. One can always sort of be open and willing to learn. Curiosity,
Yeah.
right? So those type of things are sort of in the middle, what one can focus on. And also, putting on a gym shoe every day. Sometimes people say, like runners say, once they put on running shoes, they just immediately just go run.
Yeah.
Some days they don't feel like it, but they do it because they put on running shoes. So putting on a shoe, it's a choice that you can focus on.
Totally.
And then the outcome does matter, and you
Yeah.
can control it.
Of course.
So, yeah.
Sweet. Let's talk about this one. Communication plus commitment. That's how
C's.
long-term relationships are built. Tell us about the 2 C's.
2 C's. So this, a lot of my friends actually even mentioned this in the relationships and use it at their weddings and stuff like that. With constant communication, so we minimize misunderstanding. And with the commitment to say, this Arthur Brooks, the professor at Harvard, he teaches a class actually called the Class of Happiness, and he's got a few books coming out, and I genuinely enjoyed his conversation podcast. Shout out to Arthur Brooks, his content. He talked about his commitment, throughout his marriage and things like that, or Matthew McConaughey talked about his marriage too, where no matter what happens, commitment is you don't leave. So let's say you can have ups and downs, but let's say, Ryan, you and I are working together. Remember what happens? This doesn't end. We just find a way to make it work better. So that's commitment. That's like, okay, you're committed to me, I'm committed to you. This direct, like, okay, we want to do this together, and that's the outcome we want to be at. And regardless of how it is, we find a way to make it work. That's the type of the commitment that people generally have. That you see, like in successful marriages who raise, wonderful children and stuff like that. They generally have that. And communication is the way to sort of always keeping that commitment up to, oh, I really don't like how you did this, and that person or did this. Then there's a direct communication way. Then the other person know where the partner is at. And that's important, I think. So the combination of that leads to long-term relationships, and those make life meaningful. I think that's why people want them, because it's meaningful towards the end of life. You have somebody with you. You have friends who enjoy truly who you are, and not by status or want to be around for a certain benefit or things like that. So that's what's the most rewarding thing in life. It feels great to have those.
Robert, I like that you practice what you preach. These quotes that we have around the office are things that you say on a daily basis that have become principles in my strategies, my investment philosophy, and I think they're great things. And we'll talk about communication and how a use case of that when we get to the last part.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this one over here. Obviously, it was a little bit more of a creative design,
Yep.
no words, and we talked about in the office that one night all together.
Yep.
Tell us about what the thoughts were behind this and how that, I guess, is impacted by our move to Irvine and whatnot.
Yep. So we, so the right side, since you spoke, so we moved to Irvine and now live in Newport, this area of being many years in California, 10 years counting plus, and you grew up here.
Yeah.
So I spent time in Pasadena, in LA, in San Diego. I spent time in the Bay. You grew up in the Bay, and been to SoCal often.
Yeah.
Like, we love this. We love the weather. The palm trees, it just brightens the mood. The sunset, the waves,
Of course.
the beach. I mean, we're blessed. It's the best part of,
You're absolutely
of in my opinion, anywhere on earth in a way. So we love it here, and we hope. And obviously, politically and other things, there's a lot of things California's going through. We hope, and at some point, we can do our part to make the state as good as can be for most people living here. So we love the West Coast. We love California.
I agree completely. Let's talk a little bit about the East Coast. Why is the Statue of Liberty on there? And then we'll jump into that.
That's the sign of freedom and liberty. So this is the sign where you have the Statue of Liberty at Harbor, New York. You literally Staten Island, and having her holding the sign of welcoming immigrants. We are all from immigrant families
Sure.
and of different cultures who's migrated here and started a life that's been blessed with the tailwind
Yeah.
of this country and what's brought, and the idea behind it.
Yeah.
So the pursuit of happiness, the liberty, the freedom, right? That we all entitled to have that, and to give the opportunity for us to thrive in entrepreneurial or pursuing the dreams that we see fit, and then in large eventually benefit society in a way, right?
Of course.
So that to me is more symbolism of America. Obviously, it's the East Coast side, it's New York,
Yeah.
and that welcomed the original immigrants. West Coast, we have plenty of immigrants here too,
Yeah.
and the idea of the East Coast, West Coast, sort of, I spent a lot of time there in my earlier years and formed my life too. So I have love for both coasts, and that's the idea of America, and hopefully that's something, and America, I hope America can do more good for the world as well.
Of course.
There's obviously global situations that's rising every year.
Yeah.
That needs global collaboration. So I think that idea is great for, especially for individuals and for the families. I think it has been the case where the country has been welcoming me, and it is concerning at times where when it doesn't become, with certain trends that are going on, that's not as welcoming to immigrants anymore. I do think that's something people need to think about. There's one simple stat, Ray Dalio talked about this. There's about 3 million people that create jobs for other people in this country. They're entrepreneurs, they hire lots of people, blah, blah, blah. Half of them are immigrants. So there are 3 million people out of 400 million people who create these companies like, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, Apple, all these companies. Half of them who are Jeff Bezos, Cuban, his parents are from Cuba, Cuban parents, and then, Elon's from South America, Jensen's from Taiwan, and these things, like, they create jobs for other people. And the immigrants come here with more of a great, sometimes more patriotic, with more of a love for the country too.
Of course.
Compared to where they come from.
Yeah.
So, and that I think it needs to be reminded today, more than ever, that we shall become as welcoming. That's the strength. That's good for this land, for the country too. So
That's
that
great.
should be emphasized.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
So, first week I came in, I asked you, I said, Robert, you've been in this industry for almost a decade. Why is it that you're thinking of expanding the team?
Yeah.
And this goes back to your communication piece. In a very direct and no BS way, you told me, I've done it. I've made a track record that I've proven to myself that I know what I'm doing. And I can only do so much on my own. It's all about scaling, growing the team. And in doing so, you give opportunities to individuals like myself and Angela to become a part of something that you've put, a decade's worth of time into.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about these quotes and I guess your idea of helping the next generation.
Ryan hit it spot on, and thank you for that reminder of never leave that day one thought. And that was the original conversation when we first met. I'll go with this. This is the young Warren Buffett, young Charlie Munger when they started Berkshire Hathaway. And this is which you read the letter of 2025's Warren Buffett Thanksgiving letter that he's kind of signing off, and he's very emotional. And his last year as chairman. In the future, he'll just be on the board, and a new CEO takes over. And then he says, "This is him before he goes quiet." Writing. Greatness does not come through accumulating great amounts of money, great amounts of publicity, or great power in government. When you help someone in any thousands of ways, you help the world. Kindness is costless, but also priceless. Whether you're religious or not, it is hard to beat the golden rule as a guide to behavior.
Just goosebumps, even when we read it after we've already written it down this
So
poster.
it says for itself. This was a producer for Kobe's Granny Studios, actually. Before he passed away, he was making so many more films coming out after he won the Oscar. He would, and he brought Mamba Matali to it. People were saying he was in the office for many, many hours writing these novels, and one of the poetic lines that he wrote for the next story that was going to be released before he passed was, the original quote is actually slightly longer than that. It says, "Walk until darkness is a memory, rest if you must, but you must keep going, and may you become the sun on the next traveler's horizon." So sometimes a lot of things that we impact, eventually, obviously we're sort of still both young, and Ryan's a lot younger than I am too, but eventually later, in life, I can sort of visualize or see this with people who are sort of, I talk to people across all ages and stuff like that, whether they're successful now or they raised a good family and become a good dad. That's the definition of success too. And then it does not come from accumulating great wealth or being very famous or around big government jobs. they become the sun of the next traveler's horizon. Other people look up to you. Then you become this guiding light to their life. Then that brings tremendous amount of meaning, I think, because life all ends at some. This particular case that unfortunately he passed away at 41 years old, right? So, but my mentality becomes something that's a light of our guiding North Star for what we do next. And for them, 99 years old, 95 still going, that provides lifelong lessons. So for me, I want to become the sun for the next traveler's horizon.
Sure.
That's standing right here. So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your insights, Robert. Thanks for the tour of the office. Pure value all the way.
Thank you.
So now that we're warmed up, I want to walk and talk with some lighter questions.
Perfect.
Tell me about some of your daily must-haves.
Daily must-haves. Right here. Let me open this door. You will see my number one daily must-have. It's the sun. We must get some vitamin D. There you go. For me, in general, I think having sunny weather and look at being in Southern California, it's just great. You can't beat it. I think obviously it's a luxury to be here, and I think getting good weather, it's something I can't control. But having that on a daily basis, man, it lightens the mood and it's really good. And again, sleep, healthy diet, exercise, the big three. That's kind of boring to talk about, but that's generally what it is.
What's a part of your daily routine that no one understands? I've seen some of it.
Okay. Start with one that you see.
Well, you said that you like to chug a ton of water the moment you wake up, and then go straight into reading before you even use the bathroom, brush your teeth.
Yeah. That's right. I kept that habit for many years from especially being an entrepreneur when I started. So when I wake up, I like to, and this is sort of science back, get some daylight and then hydrate a lot. Then the freshest mind sometimes gets, it's just I freshly dive into a piece of reading. That's very hard for me to understand sometimes. It could be how a semiconductor system being designed, NVIDIA's CUDA system, and things like that. I need to read and understand these things for the work that I do, so I jump right into it. And I find that way it's a good way of waking up actually, by doing the hard work. And some people wake up doing 20 push-ups and get them going, stuff like that. So I kind of think that as a mental way of doing it. But being outside is important too, I would say.
For sure.
So that's a really good one. And the other thing is I generally don't sacrifice my sleep. So sometimes if I go to bed at 3 o'clock, on a weekend with a social event or something, I would try to at least wake up at 11. So I just target 8 hours, regardless when I enter bed.
But it's not the same quality of sleep.
It's not the same, but I should still try to get it. I'm not the type of person, if I went to bed at 3, I want to wake up at 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To still stick to the certain routine type of. I generally sort of want to get as much as possible. That's obviously this luxury for shift workers. Not everybody has that, but I value that a lot.
Cool. What does a good day look like to you? Describe your ideal day.
My ideal day. So sunlight, good weather, working on a few intellectually interesting problems that I find intellectually stimulating. I think that's very important. And then to spend time with people that I enjoy, and also iron sharpens iron, helping to be better. So this quote people say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room kind of thing. I kind of want to be around people that are smarter than me. I mean, a lot of my friends that way. Shout out to them. One of them is coming on the podcast next. So I kind of want to spend time with people that I enjoy. And then get some physical exercising, and then cap off the night watching some type of sport, a great film. This is how I
Drive.
Great film. I think I love storytelling and things like that. So a good day, probably intellectual work, physical exercise, hopefully Southern California weather. At nighttime, friends and family, socialize with cool people, and a way of cap off a night watching a good movie or something like that. So that's a good day.
Okay.
At home, traveling is a little bit different.
So now that we know this optimized side of you, I want to talk about some of the parts that make you human.
Okay.
What are some of your weirdest habits?
Weirdest habits. What? I mean, I think people are unique. Nobody's weird. Let me go. Let me think. I would say
maybe something that's more abnormal.
I would say I think something that's abnormal. Okay, so I think generally I kind of go for asymmetric things. So things are not like, some people, they like to put their fridge with one piece of drink and another Coke, like categorize it by pair and things like that.
Yep.
I thrive in chaos. So this is
Yes, you do.
general, right? You know this. So I thrive in chaos. So if a day doesn't
no
go,
order.
There's no order. And then my good friend Michael shared this. When he misses his flight, he gets excited, extremely excited. Now he gets to stay at another airport, and there's new people to meet. There's new things to happen. And then he talked about, his partner at the time, they don't understand. I'm the same way. When things like that happen, I'm like, well, time for another venture, right? So I'm very comfortable in discomfort, I would say. So when those things happen, I'm like, okay, it's meant for me to stay here. Let's say if I have a connecting flight at the city, it's meant for me to stay here tonight. And then if I meet a person at a hotel front desk, I'll have a conversation, be like, what's your story? Where are you from? And life is just, being open to new possibilities. And I think that's something that's weird. It's just sometimes it might be enough chaotic things for other people already. But for me, generally a disorder or chaos, I take that as okay.
But for someone who values their time so much,
Yep.
and missing your flight can
Yep.
throw off your entire day,
Yep.
how do you justify
Great question.
that spontaneity and chaos over
Yeah.
your time?
Great question. I don't look at time as doing something at a certain time, place, doing a fixed thing. I think it has to be philosophically. I can spend time learning. So for me, wasting time with a meeting that shouldn't be had or something like that is definitely hurts from a time management standpoint.
Yes.
But if I miss the flight, I stay there and read a book for 3 hours. You can be productive. So being in life, it's never about a destination. We're all going to the same place. We're all going to the same place in life. If people think they're going somewhere, slow down. We're all going to that same place. But the journey is what makes it interesting. So for me, to learn every day, to connect with other human beings every day, is very, very important. I'm passionate. You can see I'm passionate about that. And then if I'm famously for doing, I think I told all my good friends know this, that I do these like air squats on the plane. 100 of them in the hallway. Doesn't block people go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like when they go, I cut my move.
Can you show us that again?
Yeah, you imagine you have a barbell on your back, and you go down all the way down, and just come back up. You do it 100 times on the plane. It's really good for your whole body.
Yeah.
Just stretch it out. And then the top of the thing. I always offer ladies, especially older ladies, to help them to put
Luggage.
To put the luggage up. It's a nice shoulder press, and you stretch it on the top, and then you sort of just put your hand up,
Yeah.
and you stretch it, and you feel good, and you're moving, and like you kind of stretch your body, and it's just like so if I'm on a flight for 6 hours, it's not waste of time. I can still get those things done.
Yeah.
I look at I think this great Charles Darwin quote I love the most. It's never throughout human species, it's never the smartest, nor the strongest that survived. It's the most adaptable. That's the truth. We are here today. Genetically, we are literally more adaptable than our ancestors. That's why we survived. So I look at one's ability to thrive and adapt.
Yeah.
So if something is thrown out my way, I think, oh, here's an opportunity to shine.
Yeah.
How can I adapt to this situation? So adaptation is the key for all progress, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yep.
What is, tell me about your most chaotic day you've ever had as a CEO.
Most chaotic day. Most chaotic day. I think I had to probably fly to New York, have a meeting, fly right back on the same night, couple hours of sleep. It was tough on the sleep angle, and then not being able to do much besides being on the plane.
Yeah.
The day with that type of things had to optimize without doing that destroy. And
Uh-huh.
also, this is more on the personal side.
Yeah.
With my, when my dad was ill with pancreatic cancer, I basically was, sort of seeing, talking to my mother, doing work, process that emotionally, but also during the time, this was in 2021, markets were having ups and downs, rate adjustments, all kind of different things. It was difficult to compartmentalize what I do, especially for long positions in the portfolio. I have to
Yeah.
have optimism towards life. but also I was going through those things mentally and to compromise it. And a great friend of mine who now become very close to me, at a time we just got to know each other about a year, and at the time we weren't as close. I didn't disclose to him that my father was ill and going through that. And he knew me as a friend. We hang out almost every weekend, but he said he never saw that side of me. He didn't know I was going through that. So I think the hardest part is probably dealing with personal life adversities and challenges, while be professionally productive at the same time. I think that's probably hard. If you ask great CEOs like Jamie Dimon or someone, that's probably what they would say as well, I assume. I think.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. So.
My next question is, if someone shadowed you for a day, what would they roast you for?
Would they roast me? You tell me. You shadow me for a few days now, not too many, but what?
Quite a few.
Quite a few.
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. What will you roast me for? And I'll give you
I think it's the what you call spontaneity.
Okay.
It takes some getting used to.
Okay.
So if say like someone didn't know you and
Yep.
like for me I didn't know you, like
Yep.
it's like really crazy, but once you get to know
Yep.
you a little bit better, it makes sense.
Yep.
And I know it's
Yep.
my job to adapt to your
Yep.
life.
Yep.
So
Yep.
um
Yeah, I would say it's just flexible on the details and stubborn
Yeah.
on vision. So I want to learn. For meetings, I want to have meetings with smart people,
Yeah.
and we can exchange and challenging each other's ideas. Ray Dalio said this about Bridgewater, to find the smartest people that disagree with you.
yeah.
And I want to, now daylight saving back to standard time, where at 4 o'clock sunset, I generally want to be outside as much as I can.
Yeah.
If I can, get sunlight, exercise, things like that. So those are pillars of my day. And then later part of the day, the part like outside work that don't see is the friends and family time and stuff like that after I get home, or watch some sports and catch those things. So I think generally those are, I'm very stubborn on getting those things done generally in a day, or at least on a weekly basis. Like, if I didn't lift on Thursday, I would just go a little bit more reps on Friday type of things.
Yeah.
But that's the goal, if you will. And then the details, if it's 3:15 versus 4:15, either way, I gotta get it done. But if it's sunlight, if it's sunset, it's really dark already versus not dark, there's a big difference, if it makes
Yes.
sense. If a meeting is super productive, I can go on, like, today having great conversations for hours, that's okay. But if there are days the meetings should be cut short, which I need to get better at, that you don't talk about is anytime you don't feel like it's necessary, just leave.
Yeah.
If it's 5 minutes, then it's not worth the time. So if that makes sense.
I have come to learn that you are very much impacted by the sun.
Oh, true.
So if it's a
Circadian
sunny
rhythm.
day, yeah, you're like heavily impacted by it. So I will
Having more energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Or
Yeah.
like if it's still sunny out, you're gonna wanna do something outside.
Yep.
Or even like in the morning, you might wanna do like a morning workout because it's sunny outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'm still learning.
Yeah. I think for just everyone, they have to figure out. I think the best way to be selfless is to be selfish first. So you find out the best way for you to optimize.
Yeah.
How can I be the best Robert I can be? How can you be the best Angela you can be? Then you can be there professionally to produce. You can be there for your friends, for your partner, for your family. You have to find out the best way how you can be. Does it make sense? Then everything else comes along. Like for me to do air squats or like stuff like that on the plane or in a stretch,
Yeah.
it's needed for my own mental health. In that
For sure.
sense. Yeah.
Okay, so more personal stuff.
Okay.
Tell me about some of your biggest pet peeves.
My biggest pet peeves. I think about this. I like to generally work intellectually on empty stomach. For example, we ran a podcast today. We had conversations. I should probably just have black coffee.
Yeah.
But later I'll also eating a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then I also there are also pet peeves, like for example, I generally try to do more solitude work. I'm an extrovert social person. I will schedule social things on the weekends. I'll socialize after work. But generally, actually, especially for hedge funds, it's a thinker's game. So I spend most of my career, when I start building up to this point, working solo for most days at early part of the day. That way I have less distractions.
Okay.
So I don't like to have the presence of, like, even around my house, like someone in the vicinity while I'm reading and thinking. Not because I'm an introvert, it's actually because of the opposite. Like I could never, when I was in school, I could never do work at a library.
Yeah.
Because I would just say hi to this buddy of mine, that person, and hang out with people at a library.
Yeah.
While I'm in my own room, I can focus and stuff. So I love people too much, so it becomes a distraction in a way. So the pet peeve is probably more solitude focus work. Does that make sense?
The pet peeve is when you get distracted by people.
Yeah, I like some deep focus time.
Got it.
Yeah, or even gym time with friends. Sometimes I generally my best workouts are solo, and then we will get together to do some sports together. Basketball. Those are the best moments. So, but if I need to get shoulder press done at my PB, I'm going to doing shoulder press. I can't just have have a friend there, even though he or she might not do anything. But I like to talk to them and hang out, so I get distracted. So I think knowing one's own tendencies and weaknesses is very important. So that's probably like a big pet peeve of mine. That makes sense.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Playing 2K with my friends.
2K?
2K, NBA 2K. So it's this game. This is harder to explain but if you play, you might like it. So it's two of my best friends who one of them we used to be roommates in college. Shout out to Kareem. He now we live in different time zones. So I will FaceTime him and play together against each other. Pick a team on NBA League and then just play each other. That way, even though we can't dunk in real life, we could dunk in the game. We could do a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes on a open Saturday, I would play for a few hours with friends on 2K. That's a big guilty pleasure. And also, haven't gotten in the position to be a general manager or something of a professional team yet. So I kind of like to trade players and make personnel decisions and do things like that. So I would say that's a guilty pleasure.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
If you had to pick a completely different industry tomorrow, what would you pick?
Great question. Today or when I started? I think I'll give you two answers. I think when you started from 0 to 0.1, before you have sort of anything sort of track record or things like that build up, you want to find something you're extremely good at.
Yeah.
You don't have to be super passionate about it, but you have to know that you have some strength there to do that. I think I would do something like, I think we'll do something marketing, design, some business-related things that just go to market. I think generally I enjoy communications, and I find if I weren't in the decision-making process, like a hedge fund manager, I would do those things. But now I think I would definitely do something that's content, film-related. I expressed the love for the Joe Rogan's podcast with Matthew McConaughey in that episode.
Yeah.
I expressed, I think, I would love to either direct, being a movie, acting a movie, to really express my storytelling side of things. Kobe had that too when he won the Oscar. So I think something that's movie, film, media related, creative related. I think that creative side of me really wants to come out now because finance is such a disciplined game.
Yeah.
It's just like I tell my friends this, like half of my day or most of my day is very disciplined. I have to go. The personal fitness journey is discipline. The health journey is discipline. Running a company, you have to give at least reasonable, clear guidelines and principles. I need to get better at that.
Yep.
And then the investment decision making is very disciplined. So most of this is very disciplined. And what happens is I feel like this creative, this sort of a chaotic side doesn't come out as much. And I want to use that for a creative industry something. So I think film will be great.
Very cool.
Yeah, but I don't have the credentials, and hopefully we'll find some way
Maybe
to get
one day.
Yeah,
It's never too late.
It's never too late. You gotta chase your dream. You have one again. Back to the mortality thing. We'll go to the same place at the end of life. So I think people always look for the next stage, direction, destination. It's too result focused. We should be more journey focused than result focused. And I like one quote is saying, is life about the destination or the journey? It's about the company. It's about the people you go with. And that, I think people need to look at that more. It's neither the journey or the destination, but it's actually the company. So who you do it with matters
For sure.
A lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of my last questions for you outside
Okay.
is, what are some of the smartest and dumbest things you've ever spent money on?
Smartest and dumbest things I spend money on. Well, one, this is from Thinking Fast and Slow, the book. For one's own cognitive, psychological standpoint, if I think it's a good decision, I probably spend it on it, then I wouldn't call it dumb, but to other people it might be dumb. So I'll give you a smart decision first. I think books, they're the biggest leverage things. Like $25 can yield extraordinary results.
Yep.
That's why, like, generally you see a lot of books in the office, and you have total bill probably runs up to be like a few grand at this point. I like to flip through paper books. It's easier to get to different sections and stuff.
Yep.
And obviously, respect to the author's intellectual properties, I sort of pay for them. And over time, there's a good amount of spending on books. But I think per item, they give you so much insight. And the biggest thing that young people sort of go through in life is this. We think the problems we deal with are new. It's not new. Somebody else has been here before, thousands of years ago, or 50 years ago, or 2 years ago. They've written them down. They told you they encountered that problem, and then how they felt, fiction, non-fiction, or whatever it is. Being a minority, or being a female, or being a young CEO, being whatever it is. Like, people talk about experience, and you can find it very relatable. And I think reading books is one of the best ways to learn, to feel relatable to other human beings, to feel like we're part of the human species. So the smartest thing is books. And I don't think I was a huge nerd growing up, but I did read a lot from 6 to 12. So my first grade to 6th grade. And after that, during my adolescent and teenage era, sports and chasing girls in high school got to my attention. But before that, really, I think books set up a good foundation. I picked that up again after obviously for the hedge fund work that I started for investing. A lot of reading is required. Dumbest things, I would just say small. There are many small ticket items, but I would just say cars because they're big ticket items. They're not dumb to me, as in like I race, I use them, I drive. A lot of friends know this, that I go to racetracks, I track Laguna Seca, Buttermillo, all these beautiful places. But it is costly. So it's something that motivated me throughout my entire 20s to, if I work at this, if I get to have this return and get to buy that car and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do think generally automobile depreciation and stuff like that, for people who want to build their sort of finances, especially financial literacy early on, cars is generally a bad investment.
Yeah.
But if you can afford, again, you only live once. That's the spiritual side of it. I think people generally, you should also having that thing that satisfied you, but not to justify to other people. This is the biggest economy I want to make, is that, especially in Los Angeles, most people think automobiles or cars are a symbol of status or show it off to other people. But we actually go to tracks and drive like a minute, 30-second lap at Laguna Seca and put lap times down and enjoy being inside of it. And this is only those who's being, especially that F1 movie came out this summer, and hopefully Brad Pitt did a better job explaining it. But only those who's being in the seat knows that adrenaline and that focus actually provides more focus to the work that we do. So to me, it's a solitude journey. It's just an expensive hobby, expensive sport. But it's never bought to show off to other people a status or how much money you have, that type of thing. And I think that will be the truly dumb. So I would say that's generally it with things.
What's a money principle you wish everyone understood?
Treat it like a commodity, but treat it well. Money is precious, so you have to understand the value of a dollar.
Yeah.
Then invest it. It's supposed to flow like the water around us to productivity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you want to use it for something that you need, you can spend it. And the other thing is, this one I'll quote from Ray Dalio. He said it even better. From a macroeconomic standpoint, the biggest thing, it takes a little bit intuitive training to understand it, but he had this, shout out to his video, people can watch it. It's the economic principles, about 30 minutes on YouTube and widely watched, 14 million views by Ray Dalio. One man's spending is another man's income. People have to understand the macroeconomy flows through, as in, if you earn a salary, now you go through a car wash. But if you don't earn the salary, you don't go through a car, you don't think your car needs to be prettier, you don't go through a car wash, and the car wash person doesn't get paid, then that person who gets paid about a car wash, now he goes to buy a can of Coca-Cola. Then Coca-Cola company has profit. Coca-Cola company, because of that can of Coke he bought, can hire more employees. And it's a cycle. So one person's spending is another one's income. So the economy works really well when there's full employment, when there's people being productive, when people is being paid, and then people spend, and throughout. So I think generally people should look at money like water, kind of that flows through the system. And also it's an artificial concept that we created. Otherwise, if I grow bananas, you grow wheat, and then somebody else makes an axe, we can just trade directly. It just makes things more efficient. So the two primary functions of money, one is medium exchange, the other one is storeholder wealth. That's it. Either you store it in something that's a storeholder wealth. In modern fiat currencies, we can dive into this later, but it's a little bit tougher to store that way. And in medium exchange, you exchange that for another good. So people have, again, first principles. I just think generally we can all be more first principled when it comes to our approach to life and to things. So money as a concept, people just think, oh, if I get money, I can do that and stuff. Why do you invent it in the first place? What does it do, and how does it work? I think needs to be more examined and carefully thought about than just assuming, just take direct information sort of from what other people say, including what I say. You have to first principally dissect what I said on the information piece. Then is there knowledge in there, and does that fit? Is there wisdom that's above that? So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is something you think is massively underrated for success?
Massively underrated for success. Your ability to adapt. Your ability to adapt. Most people who are fixed in their too rigid. This is obviously very biased, but I don't think it's life. It's non-linear in nature.
For sure.
Generally, let's say if somebody makes $50, 80, 100, you can go to $1 million next year. Life is never linear.
Yeah.
Same thing with crashes. When something goes well today, well tomorrow, it's okay, but people get complacent. Then all of a sudden, they can be bankrupt, or their health can be in crisis. They can be in the ER. So life is non-linear. So I think, how do we respond to black swan events, to exponential growth, to certain things that's happening, to adapt? I think that's the most important thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, like I previously said, with our genetics and things like that. So again, it's not the smartest people, not the strongest people. It's most able to adapt, that moved along human species. And that's from Charles Darwin, of looking at all the, all the evolution history and data. So responding to challenges and new things, adversities, that's the most important thing.
So tell me, what matters more, who
Yeah.
you know or what you know?
What you know. People think these days who you know is important for obviously connections and those things, but the thing is that people value their time too. What I found is that generally people who's made it or sort of successful and in their own ways, you have to bring something to the table. So what you know, again, back to books, you can learn a lot of things and be efficiently independent on your own. And now you know what you're talking about. You bring a certain area of a domain expertise. When you have domain expertise, to cross-section with another person who has domain expertise, generally there's a mutual respect because it takes one to know one. A brain surgeon who's dedicated to his craft for the last 20 years and a lawyer who's won different trials and had a great reputation in that certain domain that he practiced law in versus a hedge fund manager who's generated superior returns over the market for a decade or something. That combination of that, people see eye to eye that way. So I think generally what you know is way more important than having, of course, societies these days, people make all these comments about, daddy's money, trust fund, and all those type of things. Sure, but that's what it looks like from the outside. I can tell you from a lot of cases that from, people that I know, indirectly know, or like, acquaintances, things like that. When you haven't earned the result, it's generally, people are not very happy. Like trust fund babies generally not that happy. Because the next thing they get to do is just party more and use more substances, and then at the end of that, it's emptiness. But when you get to go through the grind and they get to play the game, and then kind of step up into the game and win challenges one after another, there's a very fun achieving aspect to it. So what you know is way more important than who you know. Then eventually, you are someone you can meet people too, and then who you know becomes matters, and you enjoy that process, of course. I'm not saying it's not important, but I think there is a, biased opinion, but there is a stage 1, stage 2 situation that you want to go with. Earlier you are, the more what you know, what you can learn a concrete skill is the better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And my last question for you outside
Okay.
is, what is a decision that you make quickly that people typically overthink?
Quickly. Oh, people could overthink. A lot of daily stuff, like for example, I think, not saying food is not important, but I think generally if you're healthy and want to sort of maintain a healthy routine regimen, and you know this, I would eat the same lunch every day for 4 or 5 days straight. Removes decision-making clutter.
Yeah.
There's decision-making fatigue. This is real. People talk about this, from a biological neuroscience perspective. When we wake up till by the end of the day, typically why people get tired is generally you make a lot of decisions through the day, and at the end of the day, people hate driving towards like coming home, like towards the end of the day commuting, because there's too many decision making.
Yep.
Stop sign here, pedestrian there, make a left turn there. So I think streamline decisions too. And also the part I generally sort of work solo and work from home as a hedge fund manager early on as an investor, just to think straight and those things. Generally, I wear the same clothes every day for a while. Of course, these days I have a little more leeway. I can wear what I want, and kind of having fashion, style, creativity, sure. But generally, early on, I kind of wore the same thing, I ate the same thing every day, so that reduces decision-making fatigue. Then you can actually focus on what matters. So I think people overthink those small decisions every day. You kind of want to streamline most of your days and focus on what's important of the outcome at the end of the year or at the end of that 5-year cycle or something, and just work on that. And the other stuff kind of streamline it. Yeah. Not saying to eat McDonald's French fries every day, but like having like a healthy routine or something but just regimen, just repeat that. And then on the weekends or something, you can play around with the new setups and things like that. But if everything every day has to be decided on a Tuesday afternoon, then the week becomes too cluttered.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
sure. That's good insight.
Yeah.
Well, now I want to head back inside and wrap up with some more philosophical questions.
Okay, awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you, Angela.
What emotion do you think drives people more, fear or desire?
That's a really good one. Let me rephrase. What emotion do you think drives people's behavior more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fear or desire?
Yes.
I think, so I'm a big fan of the psychologist Freud in the early 20th century talking about how sort of we're in a desire-dominant world, right? And he says something like, everything in life is about sex, except sex is about power or something like that. But I think generally desire for things that people want, like money, power, fame, it seems to be appealing and definitely gets your dopamine going early in the morning and sort of get you go after in life. I've written a long form post about this on my Instagram page recently as well. I do think it is something people think that motivates them or assumes that motivates them, and it has its place. But fear, from my experience and my conversation with a few successful individuals as well, and across different age groups. People can be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, some in their late 60s. And reading from the greats of the Buffetts, the Mungers of the world, people like invented things that we use every day. Steve Jobs with the iPhone. I think fear generally is a bigger motivator because we're so wired in after billions of years of evolution of this idea of having survival instincts. So for me, my father passed away relatively early on, as in my 20s. So not as early as good at a happy childhood. He had pancreatic cancer, and it's one of those things that comes and goes quickly. And I think the responsibility that's given to me to be the man of the household, and to also being there emotionally for my mother and things like that, definitely created more of a factor or more of a survival base that we grew up reasonably well off. So we're really lucky, a lot luckier than many other people. But I think in the case of early life adversity, I would say I recommend. This is from Jensen, and the CEO, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, recently, and he's been obviously doing a lot of public events. They're $5 trillion market cap, the largest company in the world, and supply all the chips to the AI things that we use and power. He talked about so I will quote him directly. If we can pull this up, that would be great on YouTube. To have Jensen on adversity, Jensen Huang on adversity.
I think he said
resilience.
He said something like, "How hard can it be?"
Yeah, no, this is
no,
similar.
not that
This is
one.
the other one. He says smart people generally have high expectations, and high expectations means low resiliency. So he gave a talk of this at Stanford. He says, "I wish you a healthy dose of adversity in your life." So basically, he wishes you get to live like shit, then you actually get to grow a pair and be better.
I think one of my great advantages is that I have very low expectations. and I mean that. Most of the Stanford graduates have very high expectations. You deserve to have high expectations because you came from a great school. You were very successful. You're at the top of your class. Obviously, you were able to pay for tuition. And then you're graduating from one of the finest institutions on the planet. You're surrounded by other kids that are just incredible. You naturally have very high expectations. People with very high expectations have very low resilience. And unfortunately, resilience matters in success. I don't know how to teach it to you except for I hope suffering happens to you. And I was fortunate that I grew up with my parents providing a condition for us to be successful on the one hand, but there were plenty of opportunities for setbacks and suffering. And to this day, I use the phrase pain and suffering inside our company with great glee. And the reason, and I mean that, boy, this is going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And I mean that in a happy way, because you want to train, you want to refine the character of your company. You want greatness out of them. And greatness is not intelligence. Greatness comes from character, and character is informed out of smart people. It's formed out of people who suffered. And so that's it. And so if I could wish upon you, I don't know how to do it. For all of you Stanford students, I wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering.
And that's a lot of, and to extend this a little bit on parenting, and with a great group of friends, a great amount of my friends, a group of them who had babies recently, and congrats to them. I'm very happy for them. And then talking with sort of our growing experiences with parenting and family experience, it's quite evident to me that generally, and this is great, obviously, you want your offsprings to be happy and to want them to be healthy, to live a happy, low-stress life. Or, for sure, I want them to be physically, mentally healthy. I don't want anything to sort of break them in the sense where something they can't handle. But I think generally, you also want an ample dose of adversity.
For sure.
I don't want people who I think have potential, or people who I love, to have zero stress. I think it's good for the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think the fear side definitely changed people, and it doesn't have to come from literal survival. In a general, especially we're seeing this with great caveat, obviously, sitting in the United States, being in the number one global largest economy in the world, number one GDP, and being generally having resources, natural resources and other things in the world. There are places in the world that have plenty of suffering. That's places that we all know about. That's likely in the Middle East and things like that. Hasn't been blessed even with the basic necessities. That's quite different. That and I wish that never happens anywhere in the world. That's not the sort of the conversation that we're talking about here. What I'm talking about is generally sort of when you have certain needs already, the baseline that are taken care of. You want people to experience certain early life challenges, and that really shapes a person, and that makes them grow. So I do think we're driven more by it's a long-winded answer, and quoting Jensen is better than me answering directly because he's been so much more successful than I have been, and still doing it. I believe he's 62, 63 this year.
Yeah.
So doubles my age from that standpoint, and still doing it. So I think his first job was a toilet cleaner at Denny's. For anybody who does, he talks about it often, but for anybody who doesn't know Jensen, he cleaned toilets at Denny's before he became the CEO of NVIDIA. So yeah, I do think adversity and fear definitely drives people a lot more. And desire it can be dangerous too. When after you have a lot, you want more and more, and that actually leads people to be unfulfilled and makes them unhappy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's good insight. I want to backtrack a little bit because you talked about your dad. Tell me about the 3 most influential people in your life and how they've impacted you.
3 most influential people in my life. My father, Kobe Bryant, Warren Buffett. They're very personal, so it doesn't have to be everybody. I wish you find yours, but definitely, I think having heroes in life, and especially, this is Buffett's direct quote, having heroes who's never disappointed you is such a privilege. So I'll go in random order in a way. That I met Kobe at a conference in San Francisco, January 2019. January 26, 2020, he passed away. God bless his daughter and Gigi and Kobe and the 9 others on that plane. And I didn't know it was going to be. This was sort of post-retirement from basketball career, after winning an Oscar, at peace, Kobe, and so much wisdom. We talked for like 15 minutes at the event. Obviously, lots of people were waiting in line and stuff like that. And I was nobody. So gracious enough to give me the time when we spoke. I think the drive at the time, I was a teenager, so I'll give you a very direct example, and this is like for boys who play basketball in high school or something that will relate. Like, I thought I was going to play at like UCLA or something. One, natural height wouldn't allow it, but mostly like I thought I work hard on my game, then I would be able to do it. So I sort of skipped a lot of classes in terms of or letting go of some certain academic commitments to pursue that sports commitment in high school. Obviously, it's cooler, gets you more girls and do more, having more friends and stuff like that. But generally, I did like the game of basketball, and I watched and played. So, but what I would do is I would get these extra training sessions in on the weekends or whenever the gym's unlocked, just going there and play. We were at a boarding school in Connecticut. But what happened was, when I go in there, try to work on my game, every time there's another kid walks in or somebody like comes in, I would just join them to play pickup. And now I've realized that's actually one of my biggest mistakes in the way that I loved socializing, always being an extrovert. It's great having a lot of friends, and we love them to death. Some of them are family to me. But at the time, one needs to do productive work. I wasn't able to dive into deep work. And Kobe shocked me. He was able to, because all those stories that, he lived his entire life basically on the spotlight, coming to LA at 18 years old, drafted in 96, and being in LA for 20 years and having the spotlight of Hollywood. He's got a camera everywhere he goes. So we all know the stories are generally true and transparent out there. That he's able to get to Staples Center at 4 a.m., putting shots up, get work done when nobody's there. And he talked about this being, if you want to shine under the brightest lights, you have to be able to put in the work in the darkest hours when no one's there. So he's in the arena with when no one's in the stands, and he would be out there doing 3 workouts a day and fully trenched right before even before the game starts. And then when people show up, he just does what he normally does. I wanted a spotlight. I wanted to shine, but I wasn't putting in the proper work. I supposed to do my individual workouts, supposed to get my skill up, while I'm just playing pickup all the time because it's fun. But anybody who's played sports, you never sort of, there's value for competition and scrimmages, but if you don't work on your game, you're just scrimmaging all the time, you're not growing. So that's the example of Kobe. And Buffett, he gave, I related to him. Both him and Charlie Munger are very wise people, but Warren had this charm. Munger had the sharpness of like being, many ways being skeptical of certain situations, call out people's BS and stuff like that. Warren Buffett had this optimism charm and makes all kind of interesting jokes and quotes, and he's talking about when bubbles bursting. Reminds me of sort of today's AI investing landscape. He talks about when a tide goes out, then you can finally see who's swimming naked. Or he's talking about the present value of a dollar in investing. He's saying this beautiful quote and funny too. A girl in a convertible is better than 5 in the phone book. At his time, there was no Tender or Hinge, so he goes 5 in the phone book. But he's basically the girl in a convertible that's sitting next to you right now is better than 5 in the phone book. That 5 potential hits. So he's talking about the present value of the dollar. Buffett had this charisma and also the long-term investing mindset and seeing 60-year Berkshire. That impacted me in a directly professional way. That's obviously, now I'm doing that full-time for a career for the last 9 years now. And my father, I can go on. I'm sure in future episodes we'll dive more into it. Just the sort of, he was the man that everything about, because I'll put it this way. You find out everything about a person not when they're alive, after they pass away. Because people who don't need to respect them anymore, people who can say this and say the other crap about them anymore, they can all come out and do their thing, right? Yeah. So imagine if somebody's hated and at their funeral people just coming, oh, I'm glad he's gone. Like that type of vibe. Charlie Munger actually used this example. So what I've learned about him, I've learned probably equal amount of things, if not more, after my dad passed away. He passed away August 21, so it's been 4 years. More than when he was around. He had people he influenced, he mentored, his colleagues who miss him dearly, who worked with him for 2 years and come back to visit me and pay respect to my mother and stuff like that, because the way he carried himself, the way he helped other people, and he never disappointed me from all, I would say, 3 or 5 standpoints of being a dad, being a husband to my mother, being the CEO of a 300 people plus company that he ran for 2+ decades, and being there for my grandparents, being a son. So all aspect he never failed, and all aspect he excelled. So that's the, it's a good motive. I'm nowhere near there. I'm like 1% or 5%, where he is, to be there, but inspire me who I want to be. I want to be this person that can have a balanced life, excel at all these roles, not just to be able to do one thing well, but also live up to a fulfilling life that expectation of my loved ones.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So that's
Sounds
the
like-
original hero, I call him.
Yeah.
So and that has a big impact on a child's life. Yeah.
It sounds like you have a really good dad and you had a really good mom too. Good parents.
Yes. It was very encouraging. And adding one story about my dad here. What we're doing right now, I was not doing too well in grades already in 8th grade, but I was into, so my teacher talked to my dad about it, but he said one thing, the multiple teachers said, but he would always raise his hands in class and want to express a certain opinion or having, or give a class like a presentation or something. My dad's like, if you like public speaking so much, why don't I send you to the Dale Carnegie public speaking camp? And I was like, cool, I don't know what that is. He signed me up, paid for it in the summer. I went. Boom, it was all MBA students in there. So I was 14 years old in 8th grade, while everybody in the class was 25 or more. Like, I was going, okay, so I'm just gonna like learn how to speak and present like MBA, like grown-ups, great. But they also treat me with, obviously this 14-year-old kid, he's like, oh yeah, it's fun, and like just having him around and stuff. So it was great, like he was so encouraging in the sense where he's saying, if you find something that you truly enjoy and passionate about, go after that. But he was saying, don't half-ass it. You gotta go. You gotta lean into your strength, lean into your superpower. That's why I generally tell people this, and I hope I express this enough. Maybe I haven't across internal teams at Pure Value and all of us. Is that everybody has a superpower. You don't have a lot of them. You have one or two. I think I told Ryan this, which our research analyst will be on in a second, that if you find one or two superpowers in your life and just lean into them, one, you get to make a living, which most people think about. Two, you make it a good living, which most people want. And then, but most importantly, you have this anchor to you that when you are living with purpose and going with your calling, then what happens is that to other people, what looks like work, to you is play. To you, you enjoy it. Then you do even better, then it feeds into positive momentum that has a cycle. So that was a lesson from that. And again, I still wasn't committed academically at the time, and public speaking took me years to figure out the platform, how the right way to do it, giving lectures at universities these days or something like that. But yeah, it was really great that the thought of him doing that instead of saying, okay, shut up in class and like actually do the homework. But he goes, well, if you're not into submitting your assignments, but you're like you're actively in class, though, like you just don't want to do assignments, like, okay, so why don't you just go do public speaking if you told me that was the thing you want to do? And in high school, I had a Model UN and things like that, which was a fun experience as well. And actually came out in my teenage, I mean, I've been to California before, but at the time it was my formal introduction to California at the time was the summer, one summer in my high school, during my high school, that I did a Model UN camp at UCLA, and I lived in the dorms of UCLA for the entire summer, and I fell in love with Southern California. So life has a cyclical nature too.
So what's a version of yourself you're trying to grow into right now?
How can be there for other people? How can be there be better for other people? I'm looking across the room, same thing. How can I be there for Ryan? How can I be there for you? How can I be there for, continue to show up for my clients? For the last 9 years, people who trusted me with their capital investing. In the concept Pure Value Capital, what we do is very simple, but it's not easy. Like Buffett always say, I told you my principles are simple, but it's not easy. And to be the leader that I can be, I think it's great to be a great investor in a way that you can put your complex ideas and put thought into action. But it's generally a solo sport. So it's like the great Muhammad Ali, like a boxer, or like a Novak Djokovic, a tennis player, that I get so intense in terms of focusing on how to be excellent in what I do individually. And investing as a sport, that's highly individual. But to build a company, build a platform that's bigger than that, I think it will take a lot more character refinement and personal growth to be the leader that I can be for other people. And in that part, I'm just scratching the surface.
So I'm sure being in finance, you've seen a lot. Do you think money changes people or reveals people?
Great question. I think about this one kind of through different times in my life, and the experience is there's this great balance. Also, I want to achieve that in the future. I think future episodes I want to elaborate on podcast as well, of the balance being relatable and describing an authentic experience, and hopefully it doesn't come across as alienating. I think money definitely plays a factor in how you think about everything in life, especially living in such a world. People call it materialistic world. I just call it resource dependent. Not every country has the same amount of oil that needs to run their energy supply needed on Earth. So then your resource allocation becomes different. That's an analogy to per household and per person. So I think money reveals more your character, who you are. So what you do after you have a good amount of money, generally. And then there's a more scientific way to approach this too. So Morgan Housel, shout out to him, great author, wrote The Psychology of Money, and I think he had a new book coming out too. That's also really good. Just talking about how I think generally the ballpark is, if you are around, let's say, going from having nothing to have maybe $100,000 saved in an investment account or something like that, then going around maybe $1 or $2 million. That's like we're sitting in the great state of California. That but with caveats, with the problems that's being a great state is that housing prices high, stuff like that. So then you go to $1 or $2 million, but that if it's not liquid net worth, it can be your home, right? It could be your house, but you can't really spend that. Then you go up there, 5, 10, then sort of this definition of like people generally think in terms of a billionaire or nothing kind of a thing, but there's a lot of tiers in the middle. There's like people who is with a couple $1 million in retirement accounts. There's people who are having more of an asset base or having a business that's worth $20 million, maybe generate $1 million cash flow and stuff like that. So I can go on, but I think generally it reveals people in the sense where what you do with it, it buys the freedom. I like this quote that I read very early on in my 20s was, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it gives you the option to find out what does. And I personally think out of the three things, I think we talked about a little bit about this before, between money, power, and fame, the three things I think about people sort of having this strong desire to attain. I think money is the least evil one of the three. Power generally is more zero-sum game. You dominate over other people, that's why you have power. You can decide in a dictatorship situation or authoritarian country, you can literally decide who dies and who goes to war. That's a form of power. And then in hierarchical situation, hierarchical family, you can tell, in this, I'm sure you relate from certain cultures, Eastern Asian families, or whatever the case may be, people can say, can decide who their kids marry, can decide what they do for their occupation. That's power. So generally, it's more dictatorial. As a very freedom, I have this sort of more libertarian freedom loving soul that I don't like power as much. And I think those who attain it shall be very careful with it. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, and fame is something, another beast that generally it looks appealing for the ones who don't have it, but the ones who are in it actually kind of want to get out. Because privacy and all other things. So going back to money, I think it reveals your character, who you are, because just having resources to allocate, you can decide to buy your mom a car and take care of her retirement with their mortgages, things like that. Or you could, sort of spend it, waste it in a way, or substance abuse or things like that can easily, you can easily go bankrupt quickly too.
Yeah.
So money is a double-edged sword, just like power and fame. But I think if one learned the proper financial literacy, which we'll dive into with more technical details on the podcast, hopefully, I think this can be, it can be great in the sense where you can allocate resources. You can, another quote I like is, somebody sitting under the shade today is because someone else planted a tree 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In my case, my father worked pretty hard. He planted some of that, not directly, but we were well off growing up, but definitely not super wealthy or anything like that. We flew economy class and things like that. When he was on business trips with his company, he flies business just by himself. He brings me and my mom and myself. We flew econ, things like that. But the goal was to sort of having the platform, access education, those type of things for your children, and I think can be helpful to them for the ones you love. And most importantly, to create opportunities, right? This is the underrated part. Like, you create jobs. When you start a business, when you are good at capital allocation to do things the right way, you sort of funnel this channel to different to where the resources needed. So I look at money kind of like people say liquidity, right? It's kind of like water. It flows to where if you are
Yeah,
good,
it's like water and energy.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, if you are good at capital allocation in what we do, as investors, you can direct it to the proper resources that's needed. And I would refer to another video if I have time to about Warren Buffett talking about this, about how he talked about the casino, the cathedral inside a casino, this concept of modern markets and money, casino inside the cathedral. I think. He referred to this, and it's quite interesting. But also, we could pull up a quote if that's possible. Warren Buffett on kindness from his Thanksgiving letter. So he wrote a letter very recently.
We have it.
Yeah, we have it on the wall.
Here.
Yeah, we have it on the wall. But it's good. We can pull it up. He said, the Berkshire, my life would be happier if I would yours 6-8 different houses or a bunch of things. It doesn't correlate. So, and I think having loads of money doesn't add to happiness. That's also something I'm happy to dive into in the future episodes of how each phase sort of changes your psychology. And then I think I still have more ways to go. But generally, that's not how, with the author Morgan Housel talk about in The Psychology of Money, the book, he talked about the amount that you think you'll be happy, it's always double the amount you have now. So people never stopped. So that's where the dichotomy is. So I think there's got to be this recognition of, okay, what do I need it for? How do I plan to use it? And then what type of things I'm truly passionate about and need. That I don't think everybody's goal or dream at like 3 years old or 10 growing up is to have a 600-foot yacht or something like. I don't think that just generally or having a plane. I don't think that generally was the case. But because of this monkeying fact we have in society that we generally come from somewhere. Let's just say either God created us or some cases. But the thing is, we compete with our neighbors, with our
keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly, in ways that probably plays more into how we view money, and I think that feeds on the engine of capitalism itself, of course, and that otherwise we wouldn't have the economy that we have today.
Yeah.
But as an individual, just be cautious of that, and then probably be a little bit happier too, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about, like you said, having a business, you create jobs. I saw somewhere that said an indication of how successful your business can be, like the potential of it, is how much you can impact people, the amount of people you can impact. What do you think of that?
Employees first, customer second, me third. This got to be the way. I believe the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, talked about this a few years ago, and others have talked about this. Probably even John D. Rockefeller, in the letter to his son, in the early 20th century, 100 years before us here today. It's who you are. It's who we are internally, as you know. Of how can I, in my best position. The leadership is about serving. It's not about giving orders. Sure, we give orders, but it's about serving. It's about how can we build a culture that people thrive in their roles and prosper in their roles, and getting to do cool things like being on camera, getting a recording pocket, like something that's a unique experience that you probably wouldn't expect first stepping, but then it helps you grow, or it's interesting, or it's exciting, or something you can tell your future children, be like, hey, mom did that, or I did it. Like, isn't that cool?
I was a star.
Right, things like that. So, which might not be part of the job description. But again, human beings are highly versatile and dynamic, and I look at it that way. So, and clients who we serve, a lot of them I know them deeply well personally too. So I want them to do well, and when somebody trusts you, that's the greatest, highest degree of honor. This Warren Buffett talk about this at being he said, why go out of bed to go to work at 95 years old? And with the amount he accumulates and stuff like that. Now, obviously, he doesn't work for money a long time ago, but because people trust him. So when I went to the shareholder meeting last year in 2018 and before, there's 30,000 people in a packed arena to listen to a 95-year-old talk about finance. or investing, or just life philosophy, or ask them questions. What advice would they give to their 7-year-old, or what, like all those things. People trust them with their capital and with their reputation. So I think that level of trust, to have people who's willing to spend their days working together with us at Pure Value, to have clients and investors who believe in us, and then everything else builds on top of that. Then I will be fulfilled too. So that's the goal.
Good answer. When you picture yourself at 60,
Yeah.
what's the vibe?
Double my current age. Okay. So 60.
Probably still look the same.
I want to do a lot now. So let me answer the present first. I want to do a lot now. Aristotle had this great quote of early 30s might be one's greatest time in life because you can combine experience with energy. So I hope I still have the energy of, our 22-year-old Ryan, that I remember having the energy at that time, but also maybe just a little bit more experience that can also help. But early 30s, sort of you combine these two, and I want to do a lot more, having the Pure Value Capital, having Pure Value Media with which we'll go through the sort of the 3 layers of information, knowledge, but wisdom that we can hopefully pass on. And again, we stand on the shoulder of giants. I didn't generate these wisdom where a light bulb came to me and created them. I just want to sort of pass on the message. Different generations have different heroes. Kobe learned his game from MJ, and Buffett learned his investing from his mentor, Benjamin Graham, who wrote The Intelligent Investors. But with different generations, the next generation might not go to Omaha and admire Buffett or learn things from him. So I shall pay my dues to pass the baton forward. That will be the goal. So at 60, some point, hopefully I'll be, again, back to my original hero with my dad, probably good husband, good father. My kids hopefully grown at that point. I don't have any yet. Hoping to have at some point, and then grandchildren maybe at that time. So family person first, and also the Pure Value family I'm building, the company, the clients we're going to serve. Hopefully in the future, endowments and foundations and things like those, people who need the resources for good cause. Hope I can do that. And young people who feel, we all feel lost at some point if this message find anyone. So I'll give you like a example that happens to me. I tell my close friends this all the time. So about at least 2 to 3 times a year, at least once every month or so, I will get a person that hits me up, respond to like a DM on Instagram or something, that has, like, we follow each other, but we haven't seen each other. Maybe we met at like a car meet event. Maybe we met like through a hobby from like 7 years ago. They'd be like, hey, Robert, keep posting the stuff you're posting. Or like, one of your things really helped me when I was down. Or, someone that he said he was diagnosed with clinical depression last year. And he said somehow the content I posted really helped him from a standpoint of, as a man, he felt like he wasn't heard. And he felt like I was doing a lot for men's mental health. And I was going, well, I'm not a psychologist. That's not, if you should keep seeking the help that you need. But he was saying actually the content I was posting, or the message, something that I write things, I share quotes that I write down and stuff like that, was helpful to him. And I haven't seen the person in like 7-8 years. We met maybe through a one-off event. So those things I hope I can continue to do and to inspire. So at 60, I have my family, I have the Pure Value family through the work I do. So the combination of meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And hopefully at 60, I can be in great health to keep doing it. There's a lot of greats who are in their 60s or even later than that, who's doing it. So Jensen, which we mentioned early on, 60 plus, or obviously we have older politicians now these days. Seems to be a trend. I don't know if that's a good thing, but people who run offices at those ages do different things. So hopefully at 60, life is just starting a new chapter for me. That's what I want. So health, I would say number one. That's selfish speaking. I want great health, and everything else that I can
health
do.
Health is everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
But with great health, I think I got to do something about it. I got to do something with it, and that's the goal. Just like resources. With the foundation, I want to be able to build something on top of it, not to waste it, and to leave a thought to conclude there on that one. It just, this one personally motivated me quite a bit. I shared it with a few close friends. It doesn't resonate with everyone, but one of Kobe's teammates said the way he would describe, and later became his coach actually, Brian Scott. He was his teammate during rookie year, and he became his coach in the final year of Kobe's career, Brian Scott. And he said best way I would describe Bing, his nickname is Kobe Bing Bryant, is that Kobe didn't waste his greatness. So everybody has greatness inside them already. This is fundamentally what I believe. You have that in you, Angela. Our team, Ryan has that in him, and I believe, our producer, Andrew, great talent. Shout out to Status Film. Without them, this wouldn't happen. Like, everybody has greatness inside of them. I just want, and David and Sam that's on set. And I think the best framework, I think, to keep myself in check, there are certain days I get lazy and don't want to do certain things, and I just go, I don't want to waste my greatness. There might be one or two things I'm good at that I shall continue to do and maybe adds value to other people. I should lean into those. There are things that, obviously, that I'm not good at all, right? Angela's in charge of helping me with a lot of things around the office that I'm not good at. But the things I'm great at, I don't want to waste it. So the best way for me, framework for me, at least motivates me, inspires me, that spoke to me, was that someone that I admire didn't waste his greatness. That's how I want to be, to remember or still living my life at that point, 60 and forward, if that makes sense. I also don't take that for granted, because since my father passed away at 58 years old. So we will see how life goes, but that's the goal. Yeah.
That's awesome. And for my final question, what is a piece of advice you would give someone who's building their business?
Great. I'll be very precise on this one, hopefully.
Take your time.
Here's the Elon version of a long pause. You know how Elon sometimes takes a long pause to, I don't have a nearly half his IQ, but let me think about this one. I think if you were to start a business, I would still look at this. We haven't talked about this method yet, which with a more investment-related topic, I think I will dive into a lot further. The first principle thinking. You have apply that everywhere in life, and this helps in this way. What is a business? So let's get a definition right first, right? You have a product or service that people would purchase or use. You recognize that, that's called revenue. Then you have a cost or time or whatever you need to provide the product and service. That's your cost.
Yep.
When your revenue is greater than your cost, you have margin. You have a reason, justifiable place in a marketplace economy to exist. Otherwise, it can still be very valuable work. It's called a charity. It's not a business. So if you want to start a business today that's profit driven, then you have to get the product or service that the market desires. So this is probably the most important thing I've learned, I think. That's from, I would say, not to knocking on business schools and MBA programs or undergrads or things like that. I think it's great use for, especially for engineering talent and a lot of different things. But I think for business, there's this lack of practicality to it that sort of really sets things off and not preparing. I don't think the MBA programs and the business schools are doing the best job of preparing young people to go into actual business.
Yeah.
They might be doing a good job preparing them to go to consulting, to go to give advice on how other people should run their businesses, but they're not giving advice on how they should start their own, to being an entrepreneur, or even thinking like a highly dynamic or independent thinker, critical thinking individual in the business world. Because when you look at the market, if it gives you feedback, says, Steve Jobs had this great saying, I think it's in the Code conference in 2010. This is like a year before he passed away even. And he was quite sort of already ill at the time. And people questioning him the idea of the iPad. Because when you have this phone thing, and then you have a laptop, people be like, what's the point of having the thing in the middle? You call, you text, this is 2010, and we can find that video clip added later. And then you have the Mac. What's the point of an iPad? And he goes, we think a beautiful product that can be in between use, can be a lot of usages. Going to, iPad's right here, so we have one right here. And then I'm going to launch into the market. If the customers buy, literally he said this, if the customers were going to buy it, they will buy it. If they hate it, then they won't. Then we won't have a business. We'll just find out. All the critics, all the commentators around it, it doesn't add too much value at the time before they launched it. So they launched it, and people end up, obviously the case worked out, loving it and stuff. And then he famously slammed the Microsoft Surface on the table, saying, "What is this ugly piece of junk?" Before iPad was launched, because Microsoft had a Surface product before that.
Yeah.
And then he was going, "That was so ugly. We're going to replace it with something beautiful." That motivated him to build it. So I look at it as in, if you think the market has a need, test it. Beta test it, launch the product, sell it. If the cost is high, pilot it, give it to, whatever way to find a product market fit with the product business, or for us as a financial service firm, or for a legal firm, or things like we provide a service, right? Some people need the legal advice, some people need consulting, some people might need tax advice as a CPA. Like whatever it is, you talk to your customers, you offer them your expertise, your time, your insights, and to see, do they need the service? Are you the right person to do this job, service, or make the product? Then you find out. The only way to learn how to swim is to be in the water. It's not standing by the side of the pool and to say, oh, wow, like, Michael Phelps is really going really fast there. But like to be in the water, but the problem, the sort of the perk, I call it, being in the water, is that you might drown a little bit, and then at least you choke out a lot of water, and you like can't breathe, and you go through all the problems the first time you learn how to swim.
Yeah, but not everyone's meant to be in the water or meant to be an entrepreneur. So
Yes. That's also, I think the mental preparation people need to have before they, going back to the original question, say, what advice I would give to people who's willing to start a business today, right? I think that's also a big thing that people have to prepare their
Recognize.
mindset for before they enter. It's going to be a long, tough journey, and they better be ready to grind.
Yeah.
And I think it's better to do it early. I think it's better to do it early in your life, where you can take a lot of risk, and with time, you can get back.
I
You
agree.
can fall down 9 times, get up 10, and keep going at it.
Yeah.
So, use the first principle thinking to look at how businesses are being built. Study being on the shoulder giants from the past. There are so many resources out there, and this is the thing. The most underrated thing is that $20 you can buy a book that's written by a giant. Like Home Depot's founder had a book. No Rules by Reed Hastings, Netflix founder. Invent and Wonder, talking about Jeff Bezos and all his essays at Amazon. I can keep giving book clubs because that's how I learn. And you will see that, during our office tour and stuff. Andy Grove, Only the Paranoid Survive, the founder of Intel. So this is the Jensen Huang before Jensen Huang. You can learn from these greats and how to do it. And with YouTube and social media, all that stuff out there, there's so much content. You can watch each year's live recording of Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting on Buffett and Munger talking about how to invest. There are footages everywhere on Steve Jobs' MIT speech. After he got fired from his own company, from Apple, he went to start Pixar. And we're, at a production set today, how did he build Pixar? He talked about it, doing a lot of public available resources.
Yeah.
And I think all these things are available out there.
So you would say it's better to follow footsteps than to say like reinvent the wheel or like really disrupt an industry and do something completely brand new.
I would say the methodology, the philosophy, is to follow the way your product and your service will be different than what they did.
But you're saying like the philosophy and the method, like
Exactly.
the mindset behind it.
Yes. So not to do exactly what they did, but to understand how they did it and find your own purpose with your own flavor to it. Kind of like a cooking reference that you can add flavor to anything.
Like a
but-
new ingredient.
Yes, but an egg is an egg, right? Gordon Ramsay cooks it, it's a little bit different, that type of thing. Or we had this platform for a long time until Joe Rogan Experience takes over. It doesn't become mainstream. But then at a certain point, he sways elections, right? So things like that. Then you sort of you play your own spin to it.
Yeah.
Your purpose, your why. So I think 3 things. First, principle thinking. Look at why your business will exist from a margin perspective, a revenue perspective, a cost perspective. Second, understanding other giants from the past, history, the greats from the past, how they've done it. Are there anything translatable to your cases? There generally are, just different type of business, different things. Third, most important thing is your why, your own purpose. Why do you want to wake up and do that every day?
Yeah.
Does that speak to you? Is the day, I typically talk about how you spend your days, how you spend your life.
Yeah.
Do you just want to spend most of your days reading? If you don't want to do that, you can be a great investor. But if you want to spend most of your working with your hands, designing things, or building a Model 3 at the factory in Fremont, those Elon days, early days building Tesla. If you want to spend most of your days looking at rocket science, look at literal rockets, and then figure out different components, how can I innovate this industry? That's great, that's his passion. And Steve Jobs want to design something that's beautiful, and he talked about Apple want to be on the cross section between technology and the liberal arts to express his love towards our species. That was his original words, right? To design something that's usable, that's UX very friendly and slick hardware, then that's your passion. Like, find the purpose and the why.
Yeah.
That we're all meant to do something, but other people think it doesn't have to be your thing. You just have to speak to you and how you spend your days and how you spend your hours. So I think the balance of that makes sense. So I wouldn't say the simple follow your passion or don't follow your passion kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you want to see what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what in the marketplace gets you paid. So the business,
Does it make sense?
the business unit economic size,
Yeah.
the margin, revenue, all those things. So
Yeah.
what are you good at? What the market needs, and then what are you passionate about? What do you
Yeah.
like? All those three things combined. Technically, I want to be a general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers. Okay, well, how do you get there? But could I be the starting point guard for Los Angeles Lakers? Probably not, right? Because even though you're passionate about it, but maybe I can do that on 2K, but not in real life. So that just, you have to sort of dissect that and then find a way to do it. And it's really, really good to start early.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the education piece of people spending extra time in business schools and things like that, it has its value, has networking value, has other things, has its value, but there's nothing like being in the water. And
Yeah.
being in the water teaches you real lessons. Those are applicable, especially when you fail.
Yeah.
And lastly, to conclude, I think on this one, another quote of mine, sort of I wrote down a while back. People think failure is the opposite of success. Success, failure. Absolutely not. Failure is the precursor of success. The enemy of success is not failure. It's previous success. The people I've seen failed are generally people who's been in my position. In the sense where I can fail next year. I can now have a company 10 years from now because I had previous success. Then you get arrogant, you become hubris, you think everything you do is correct, you have nobody to hedge you, you surround yourself with all yes people, and they tell you all the right things. That's extremely dangerous. Nobody excludes from that, even like Elon himself or whoever else. That's the hardest piece to get right, is when you're successful, to continue to be successful, it takes a different skill set to continue it sometimes. People think failure is the scary thing. No, failure is great. Because you learn that lessons, it's painful, you fail on your face, and embarrassed to tell your friends, family, your first company didn't work out, and what are you gonna do with that? And be like, you had 2 other co-founders, what happened to them? All the other stuff. We ended on great terms on personal relationships. But that actually provides you, it provides someone such lessons that can be taught anywhere, and you apply that everywhere. So I think failure is the precursor of success. It's not the enemy of success. The enemy of success is your previous success that sort of makes you arrogant and not relatable anymore, and believe everything you do is right. That's very dangerous. So
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a great way to end this conversation, and I think gives everyone a very clear picture of who you are and how you think.
First off, Robert, I wanted to express my gratitude not only for having me here, but in our short time and relationship we've had together, we've come a long way. I've learned a lot. We've physically traveled a long way.
yeah.
And I'm grateful to be a part of not only the experience to be a part of Pure Value Media, but also Pure Value Capital. I think we've come to learn some great things here together, and I'm excited to share, with the rest of our viewers what I have learned, and I'm sure plenty of lessons you have to teach as well. So
Thank you,
let's
Ryan.
jump right into it. Obviously, as an analyst, I talk about our investment strategy almost every day with you. You have a very principled, modern value approach, something that you've taken from the greats such as Warren and Charlie Munger and Benjamin Graham, big names that big shoes that we're trying to fill in this industry. Now, I want you to tell us a little bit about how you came to decide on that specific approach and what principles you reference day to day that involve our trades and whatnot.
I think the idea is to sort of stand on the shoulder of giants. And first of all, thank you for being here, Ryan, and to be along the journey. I think our paths are crossed, and in life, a lot of things are spontaneous by nature, and a lot of things are we don't control all of the destiny. There are things that are fates, and I met your dad, and he made a great referral, and our path crossed, and you being great value add to Pure Value Capital, and I hope to continue to. It's been a pleasure to see your journey, to see the growth as well, and I hope this is not just going to be a 2026 conversation. I hope you're going to be here 10 years from now.
Sure.
At some point, maybe you are the face of the firm. That's the reason why. So I'll start off by saying, a lot of financial firms who are named after people's names: J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. Those are investment banks and banks, but there are also investment institutions who's named after their own names, right? So, but the reason why I want to name Pure Value as this bigger platform, it's the idea that hopefully it lives on. It's the founder is involved, but also it will pass on sort of when the founder moves as well. So. It's part of the talent building process that we have at Pure Value, and you being on board, and that commitment has been really strong, and I really appreciate that. So with the thought of combining philosophies and how do we stand on shoulder giants, I would say I'll give you some direct names as how I think about this, just like how we typically run our investment meetings. We just dive right into it as ideas. So I think the approach, I would mention Peter Lynch first. So for those who don't know, Peter Lynch ran the Magellan Fund at Fidelity for 13 years, 1-3, had a 30% annualized return record for 13 years, and then he retired. His father passed away at 45, and he turned 45. He thought he doesn't have time to spend with his friends and family, his wife anymore, and then he just retired at the time, and it was a lot of work. And then he went on to writing books. He wrote Learn to Earn. He wrote Beat the Street, One Up on Wall Street. He had some very cool, famous interviews. People can find that on YouTube. There's one in '99, there's one in '97, things like that. They're very interesting. We might add a few clips later here and there. But the thing is, he talked about knowing what you own and the simplicity of understanding, like, let's say if you work in pharmaceutical sales, it might be better for you to invest in biotech than one to invest in Walmart. But if you were a regular consumer going down the street, he was in Boston at the time, so Dunkin' Donuts was a huge franchise. He saw their growth. He made, I believe, 4x his money in Dunkin' Donuts, things like that. So he believed in understanding what you own and sort of having that mindset and approach to things. So that's very, very important. I think the Buffett and Charlie Munger didn't come into sort of their teaching gave me an understanding of how, because Berkshire is a large conglomerate, of how businesses are actually being built and how they should be understood in a way. So I think their approach is very first principle. They don't look at stocks as stock tickers. That's the most important thing I've learned from them, is that they look at stocks as a right. If you own 2% of Apple, then you have 2% to the underlying economic rights to Apple Inc., all the iPhones to sell, iPad, Macs, and all those things. Then the service revenues percentage go to the shareholders. So they don't look at the trading the ticker, the prices every day, but instead they look at how is the business performing. That is a fundamental changing approach to, I think, for one, how to invest. Then you're really investing, you're not speculating anymore. Instead of betting on, speculating is like something betting on the horses, betting on if a cryptocurrency is going to go up tomorrow at certain prices, or if it could bring great profits, but the idea is about what the price change is and then what somebody else is willing to pay for it versus what is the underlying asset supposed to produce. And Buffett loves to give these two examples of farms and apartments. So he's saying if you own farmland, you care about the crops and the profits, and you're able to sell, and the underlying what the farmland is going to produce for you, the cash flow and the business itself. Now, how much somebody else is willing to pay for the farmland, or somebody bids up the price to say you want to buy that with different. You can still choose to sell it, but it's a different game. Apartment, the same thing. You want to look at the rental cash flows and how much rent you can charge over the time, not just how much people are willing to bid up your apartments and things like that. So again, it's a different game, but investing intrinsically is something that they've taught me that I think that's the first principle approach of pure value capital.
Perfect. I think that's a great transition to my next question. Obviously, intrinsic value. That's something we look at every day with every stock that we consider. Now, obviously, the idea behind intrinsic value is to find undervalued stocks and invest in them and hope to their future growth. Now, in today's market, we're seeing that there's a lot of stocks that are overvalued intrinsically, but that doesn't take away from the fact that these are still good companies.
Yep.
I want to know, what is your thought process when it comes to finding an overvalued company intrinsically or even undervalued? And let's say if it's undervalued, it may not have the best product or the management may not be the best. And if it's overvalued, maybe something is too good. I'm just wondering, how is it that you can make a decision when obviously you want to buy an undervalued stock, but
Yep.
sometimes there's not necessarily the right implications to that?
Most important thing, I would say, the two things we are looking at, you're talking about returns, right? So I think this, throughout the years, I've matured quite a bit as a portfolio manager investor as well over time. I think the most important thing I look at now is risk, then I look at returns. So typically, I read this down a few years ago saying, if you take care of the risk, the return takes care of itself. I look at risk fundamentals. There's only two things are risks: your opportunity cost. So what would you do if you did the cash for something else? And your permanent loss of capital. Not volatility, but permanent loss of capital. So it's forever gone. The company went bankrupt. The stock went down to a certain price, never recovers. The business just at some point it's overhyped to this value, and at some point it just at that certain value it just never leaves again. And then just what the business should be at, it should be worth $1 billion instead of 25, and then just will always be that. Just but if you pay for 25, you permanently lost your capital, right? Because you overvalued it. So permanent lost capital and opportunity cost, I look at as if there are intrinsically, supposedly, let's say from DCF or other methods that are highly valued companies that we think might not be the right moment or right price to deploy capital at, then the opportunity cost is your 10-year treasury, so-called risk-free rate, or what you earn on your cash. Because you could obviously, for personal finances, you could spend on items you need. Where in holiday season, you could go through Thanksgiving, Black Friday, right? If arguably, and this Peter Lynch had a great saying, and people can find this again on YouTube. He's saying the craziest thing to him was this, that people would do all kind of research before they buy a piece of furniture, buy a fan in their room. They buy a piece of chair, buy a table, buy some silverware for their kitchen. They could do all kinds of research and find the best deal. Or a TV on Black Friday, they go in there, they wait in line, they score the best freaking deal. But they will buy a stock because they heard somebody talk about it on a bus. That part, Peter Lynch eloquently described it, and he's saying, why don't people do some research, right? So from a personal finance perspective, the opportunity cost sometimes can be your spending money, like to going gambling to some, meme situations or certain coins, whatever the case, and then instead of spending that $100, people just be like, oh, it's $100, I'll just throw it away. But $100 on a Chiefs game, or $100 on Patriots game, or $100 on certain investment people speculate on, know nothing about, versus $100 buying something they actually need, or for example, $100 can buy you 5 pretty good books to read about, things like that, might be a better investment over there. So from a personal finance perspective, the first thing people should look at is, do they have their essentials taken care of, right? And then from an allocation, from an institutional or a credit investor perspective, then generally is how much can I earn on this versus what I would do in something else. A real estate investor has across residential portfolios, they might look at if their cap rate's 4%, 5%, whatever the number is. Then if they're intrinsically a business, again, stocks is a certification to own a business, that at the current valuation they determine can now no longer return them 4 or 5% compounded annual growth return, then they should invest in that real estate, right? So it depends on opportunity cost. I think that's the most important thing for people to look at it, and generally be cautious when it comes to valuations because you might not get it back. But the two key things are, again, it's not volatility though. People do think high risk is like, wow, if it drops 50 tomorrow. But if it drops 50, you should like it a little bit more if you like the business itself, because the business just got cheaper, then you can invest more, right? It's permanently at this valuation if you bought it. Would this never be worth this price? Or it takes too long to recover? And then do you have a better place to deploy this cash than buying that particular thing? And for most people, probably the index funds like S&P 500, it's a pretty good barometer for the opportunity cost, if that makes sense.
Sweet. There's a lot of mispricings in our market. Almost every stock may be mispriced intrinsically, whether overvalued or undervalued. A lot of institutional investors, either hedge funds or even retail investors, like to find these stocks and then bet big and go big or go home. How is it that in a market where you have big money looking for undervalued intrinsic stocks, these opportunities even exist?
Couple reasons. I think the most important one is the human nature of it. March 2020, for the old heads who know about the crash of 87, dot-com bubble, 08, I think March 9th, 2009. March 9th, 2009 was when market recovered and took off. For the entire year of 2008 was when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt and all that. It was as a student in history, I read about it, and that's the time to get in, but that's the time where there was great dislocations and prices were generally mispriced. So, or the correction of 2022 in October, when tech stocks were correcting, but later in November, ChatGPT came out and this AI boom that was brought upon us because of productivity, technology, innovation that leads to productivity gains or assumed productivity gains down the line. So when big events happen, people generally get irrational, either too fearful or too greedy. And at both cases, there are mispricings because generally people this human nature drives people make irrational decisions at those times, and that happens. This is the sort of the bigger market cycle sort of perspective, and the great Howard Marks wrote a book on this about mastering market cycle. Howard Marks is the founder of Oak Tree Capital, and they're based in Los Angeles, just an hour north of us. And I think I recommend a lot of his books to you as well, right?
Of course,
His memos.
definitely.
Yep. And the other reason is new businesses come along. In 2018, the end of 2018, early 2019, especially Q3 2019, when I invested in Tesla Inc. at the time, I believe now it's about maybe $400 a share or something like that, about close to $1 trillion market cap. Pre-split, I probably bought it at $14. At the time, it was $25 billion market cap, something like that, close to. And then eventually doubled to $40 billion, and it went on to be like a $500 billion. So we made 11x return from that sort of Tesla position at the time. Why it happened is generally because there's a new product plate that's coming to the marketplace that people don't understand it or that's being misunderstood. So new entries to our marketplace that's misunderstood, or new category or this innovation that's happening brings disruptive forces that generally cause mispricing as well as market cycles and human nature. And then also there are certain times great management team, we talk about the 3 P's of pure value capital when we look at investments: product, people, price. Great. And then the people side of it. Sometimes a great CEO can change a business from being poorly run to being better managed company, and it unlocks, a lot of times surprise me, the amount of alpha that's being able to unlock. For example, when Larry Culp took GE, I thought it was going to be a good transition, and GE was going to be, it was undervalued and maybe provide some good return moving forward at that price. It was attractive. But how on earth I would know it would be turned out to be like a 5x return for an already mature company that was heavily indebted at the time too. Sure. So now split into 3, and we still own the GE Aerospace. So or in 2022, when metaverse was being doubted with Zuckerberg and those type of situations, people sometimes misprice the CEO or the management team or where the direction of the company is going, and they think they're being disrupted. They think competitors come along, and then turns out not to be the case, or issue too much debt, SBC, and then eventually buy back. So there are very highly idiosyncratic situations that happens in those scenarios that we can also find an alpha in. So idiosyncratic scenarios that happen. New product entries to a marketplace, innovation that happens, people haven't understood there's a timing aspect of that. That part, I think being close to Silicon Valley, having, shout out to a few good friends of mine who started their own companies, who are great engineers who know way smarter than I am, some in robotics, some in software engineering, then they would teach me things about, wow, this is going to change how this industry is going to perform down the line. Then there might be opportunities there, right? And the third, I would say, or the first one, I shall say, it's always the human nature side. I think that side we try to do it as best as we can, and that's probably the biggest edge I think hopefully we'll continue to have. Is the Buffett says, close the room, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. I think that comes from the biggest alpha, and that's timeless.
Sweet, yeah. I mean, again, Buffett, I think another great quote that he's mentioned, and I'll jump to it in a sec. Let me ask my question first, then I'll jump to that.
Yep.
When you find what you believe is an intrinsically undervalued stock, how do you think about the amount of time it might take for the market price to reach your estimated intrinsic value? Obviously, Warren Buffett is a very long-term holder for many stocks, and I watched an interview. He said, Warren Buffett, everybody says you have such a great investment strategy. Why doesn't everybody just do it? And his answer is, my strategy is not a get-rich-quick scheme. No. It takes time. It takes compounding growth, years and years and years. And when it comes to holding positions in your fund, how do you look at, do you put a specific timeline, or do you have an end date in mind? And are you a holder forever, or do you think there's an appropriate time to sell at some points?
I look at, there's this, and speaking of Warren Buffett, so we have this Berkshire Hathaway cup here that I've been to his shareholder meeting a few times, and the first one was 2018, when 2019 pandemic went remote, we went 2023, 2024, 2025. He provides this inspiration of, there's a sign that at the hotel we stayed at in Omaha, was a sign in 2018 when we went there. It says, our favorite holding period is forever, from Buffett. So he bought American Express in 1997, I believe. So 97 to now is 28 years. And then he bought Coca-Cola in the 80s. So now it's about 30 plus years holding that, 40 years. So I think for businesses that don't change, the idea is to continue to have them. It's kind of like long-term relationships. If the relationship is great, you got to keep rolling with it as more company comes out of it.
Of course.
If the fundamentals change, you have to change your you have to change your mind too. So on that one, I will use a counter quote in the sense that the great economist Jesse Livermore in the early 20th century, he talked about one of my favorite quotes, truly, because as you know, I can change my mind quite often, and spontaneous by nature, in the sense where he talks about, when the facts change, I change my mind. What would you do, sir? So this great mental flexibility that he's talking about. So I think we always look at the facts. If the business changed, we have to look at the competitive landscape. Do they still provide the best product and service, have a moat? If they don't anymore, then we have to adjust. If they continue to do so, even other people doubt it, but we have conviction that they do, then we should stick to our conviction. So it's situation dependent, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit more technical with this next question.
Yep.
Obviously, it's very important to look at income statement, balance sheet, and other financial metrics when comparing companies. One metric that you and I like to use is TTM FCF, so the trailing for the past 12 months, free cash flow per share.
Yep.
It's a pretty universal way to compare companies, although it's not perfect. It's a great way to have a simple metric to compare
Yep.
different industries and whatnot.
Yep.
Are there any other metrics that stand out to you besides TTM FCF per share, and within what ranges do you think they're appropriate or maybe signal a buy or a sell?
Now you just give all the secrets away, Ron. TTM, trailing 12-month free cash flow per share. Now it's going to be a metric that's heavily researched on Bloomberg, and just people are just going to drive up these prices. And now we run out of more things to buy.
Well, we're here to support the entire market.
That's right. That's right. So I think it provides a good. I wouldn't rely on any single metric. I'm a big fan of free cash flow, cash in, cash out, simple metric of business, how it's operating, things like that. There's debate. This can get quite financial engineering wise, like technical, but people can debate EBIT. Private equity use EBITDA. People can use different ways to measure it. Charlie Munger hates EBITDA. He thinks it's called bullshit earnings. That's what Charlie Munger talks about. I think it generally depends on the type of businesses. Like banks is hard to underwrite free cash flow for because balance sheet risk, things like that. But I think for a cleaner business, that's a platform-based, you probably know the company we're talking about, things like that. For platform-based businesses, things like that, the free cash flow probably a lot easier to talk about. And then I'll just say the name, like Airbnb, right, for example, like things like that. I think it's a great metric for people if they want to lean in on how the business is performing from a recent trend perspective. But I would do say TTM is not a strict requirement. We should go 1 year out, 2 year out, 3 or 5 years out. For Airbnb, it's been public for 5 years. Boom, let's poll. Let's see how it's been performing.
Yeah.
How the competitors performing. And per share, we emphasize on the full equation, the per share thing is SBC. Modern companies, which rightfully so, incentivize their employees with a lot of stock-based compensation, but that's a non-GAAP expense. That's not added in earnings. So EPS is highly diluted in a way that I think you should add back to what shareholders are getting. So incorporating SBC by free cash flow per share, generally great companies reduce share counts over time. Just like Buffett talked about, he had a great example of this, Amex and Apple. He bought I think some point of 7% or maybe 11% of Amex. I have to fact check this, but the main point is that eventually he ended up owning 20% of American Express because they continue to buy back shares. So when he bought it, he owned 10 something percentage of Amex, but now he owns 20% of Amex, but he didn't buy any more. How did that happen? Because Amex bought back his own shares and reduced share count, and total amount he owns went larger, right? That's a very shareholder creative capital allocation decision. Same as Tim Cook, he talks about he bought Apple at a certain percentage, and each year kind of his Apple percentage holding went up by a few percentage because Tim Cook continued to buy back shares. So I think it's just a good metric to look at true shareholder returns. But it's not only metric we look at, it's something that provides a very sobering thought to the bottom line, if you will. But I think the most important thing, so it provides a very sobering thought on the price, on 3 Ps, product, people, price. On the price side, it provides the direct forensic review of the price, if you will. But we still want to look at product, how the business is growing, all those type of things, the moat aspect, the intangible things. Albert Einstein had this saying of not everything can be counted, and not everything that's counted counts. So those intangible things, I would say, are more important than financial statements. Because modern days, everybody has access to the data. Everybody has access to the numbers. So the edge, I would say, it's almost I think it's close to zero, just analyzing quantitatively. The qualitative aspect is more important, but the TTM free cash flow per share provides a sober thought from a quantitative standpoint to check the price. If that makes sense.
Sweet. I think one of the most influential teachings you've taught me is about the concept of game theory. And
Yep.
it's definitely affected my own personal strategy, and it makes sense as to how your strategy has been, based around that.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about positive sum versus zero sum and how that applies to the fund and your strategy as well.
Great question. That applies to life.
Of course.
Zero-sum game is you and I play Texas Hold'em. We bet on who. We have a simple bet, no lines, no casinos. We just go with Cowboys win the Super Bowl this year. Having lived in Dallas for a little bit, I'm sure you know their reputation. I would the likelihood
It's a
is
long stretch.
We'll see, but again, but the odds depends on the odds, right? If it's
hopeful,
1 to 10,000, I don't know, man. I might throw $1 in there. We'll see.
Sure.
But let's say if but just you and I betting Cowboys. The zero sumness is that if you say they win, I say they don't. $25 each. There's only one outcome, right? Dallas Cowboys actually has the Super Bowl by February, or they don't hold the trophy. Then you earn 25, I earn 25. The total pot is just that. And then when you play poker game, everybody puts 25, 10 people, it's $250 in a pot. So it's a classic zero-sum game. We can play sports, which is great for the body, for the mind, and everything. But the outcome is that there's only one number one tennis player in the world. There's only one NBA championship being awarded every year, and 29 teams, 30 teams, 29 teams get disappointed if their goals aspire to win a championship. So those are zero-sum games. They're fun, they're interesting. In life, generally, especially when it comes to wealth building and these financial literacy things, you want to play a positive game, right? You want to be able to, why does the S&P 500 grows at 10% or close to 10% per annum for the last century, for the last 100 years? So the economy grew, we all got larger. So being a part of the pie, you and I can win together. So there's a win-win multiple, there's a growing the pie effect of positive sum games. So that's called a 1 plus 1 plus 1 bigger than 2, right? So kind of like if you think about relationships, when your dad and your mom got together, it was 2 people. Now you got 4. Going family vacation, 4.
Yeah.
What happened there? Besides evolution, besides basic biology, but what happened there?
Yeah.
It's a family. So let's say assume 2 people fall in love first. They love each other. They decide to be together, live together. They're a couple. Eventually, they like, okay, we build something more, and they have children. Then a family, so it's a positive game. But eventually, let's say you go off to your own, and you grow up in big families and things like that. Then you can see, at some point, your dad's gonna be around freaking 8 grandchildren, right?
Yeah.
That's total, and around the house, that's a positive game. That's the long-term sort of mindset of things. And I think generally, when we look for positive some scenarios in life, I would say some of my hobbies, or like a pickleball or racing and things like that. There's only one F1 champion every year. It's very interesting to play zero-sum games. It's very exciting, and make sure you do it to the generally for health benefit, like something that's productive, right? Like sports. But I think the positive sum game aspect of it, it's very intuitive to value creation versus if for one, instead of saving $100 every week and putting to the S&P 500, to drop that on a football game every weekend, or to go to Vegas every weekend with that $100. The odds is really too slim.
Yeah.
Through repetitive action over time, because the game itself is zero sum, then likely the return of that type of strategy or day-to-day trading strategy, those things generally. That's why I have a simple question. I checked in my early 20s. I think I mentioned that to you, Ryan. Was that how many people on the top Forbes 100 or 1,000 are day traders? I just remember looking at the strategy. I was like, let me just check. Okay, so there's Buffett, there's the LVMH founder Bernard, right? There's the French people who started businesses, right?
Yeah.
Who built some Amazon. There's interest, all kinds of people. I was like, but who? Bill Gates, even software. It doesn't matter. You can sell handbags, you can sell software, right? You both work, right?
Sure.
LVMH or Microsoft, whatever. But I was like, who is up there as a professional gambler or a day trader?
Yeah.
Not much.
Not at all.
So that's why I sort of had that thought. Trust me, it was definitely a conversation within myself when I did some digging in my 20s too. So, but I think positive sum game is really value creative to life.
Sweet. So in this past week, I think one of the biggest discussions in the market has been, are we in an AI bubble? Is there a sell-off that we're having?
Yep.
And in my portfolio, at a young age, I'm heavily invested in AI, and I think that there's a big future for it. But obviously, we had a big sell-off, and it was an emotional drawback in my portfolio that, sometimes you sit and look at yourself and you say, man, I just lost so much money. Am I ever going to get it back?
Mm-hmm.
You have doubts in your own investment strategy. And So I want to know, as somebody who's been in the industry for so long, how do you manage the market cycle of going down and coming back up and not letting it affect your personal life and also your work life as well?
The emotional journey of our relationship with money, the emotional, you just spoke about the emotional journey as an investor, and I think that's a journey it brings solitude, and that's quite personal, and you'll find your ways. I have full confidence that I think knowing you as a person, but also I don't think it's for everyone. For example, that's why I think most people should invest passively and through the index and grow with the whole economy. If you're a doctor, that's like the best example. Again, Peter Lynch talked about this. He said doctors are horrible investors. He specifically named this because they're smart. If you're a brain surgeon, he talked about doctors who are they went to school and they're so highly technical, they're very smart, right? And then they obviously have high income. Mm-hmm. And again, this is not generalization, but and if it is offended anyone in the medical profession out there, then go to Peter Lynch, not me. But he talked about this, and I learned. But he's saying, but they think they're smart, so they can learn everything. But what happens is that because they're smart in one field, then they assume they can quickly apply that to another field. Stephen Hawking has this quote of the biggest enemy to knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. So they think they know. And then generally, the amount of homework that requires to be a full-time professional investor, it takes a full-time job. And I have another, this analogy is directly from me, that I describe to my friends this all the time, because I have friends who are also in venture capital, private markets, private equity, and then for hedge funds, we're mainly public equity. So there's slight difference there in liquid assets, stocks you can trade, and private investments, right? I describe this very simply in this analogy, and I'm quite proud of the analogy. It's just a very simple sport one. Private market investing is kind of like golf, or kind of like surfing, whatever it is. That's a little bit higher barrier to entry. The first time you hit, it's really hard to hit the ball, and like it takes a while for better, so people think it's a hard sport. Public markets investing like what we do, stock picking and investing across tradable public liquid names. It's like football, soccer. Football is in the global term, soccer in the States. Everybody who has a foot can kick it. No barrier to entry to soccer. You can play on a beach in Brazil. You can grow up in Argentina or anywhere you can play it. Female, male, doesn't matter. But there's only one Lionel Messi. And he's 5'6", slightly overweight, if you will. He's definitely in great shape, but he looks like he's a little bit over. Why is there only one Lionel Messi? Because public markets investing is just like soccer. It's very low barrier to entry, but to be a master at it takes years of dedication, compounding hard work, and a touch of genius too. Messi has that, and there's some people who is a little bit more talented that way to sort of do that. So I think public markets investing is not for everybody, and the goal is generally have an advisor that's good to do that for you, or having the proper passive investment vehicles that Jack Bogle built from the 90s to now, and Buffett shouted out to him as one of his heroes to build that accessible for everyday investors to grow with the economy. So I think the idea is to work on something you enjoy for people who have other professions to deal with that, to be best at the daily operations and invest on the side, grow with the whole economy. And for your question specifically for the professional investors, you were talking about for us, how do we deal with the emotional up and down with the markets when we manage portfolios? The personal journey, probably you are going to find your own way. Probably it's going to be the things that you do. It's going to be generally, your fitness routine, your family time, all those things. They come in different orders, and they're very important for your mental stability, mental health. But the most important thing is you have to look at the underlying rationale of why do you own the stock to begin in the first place. So back to first principle. If it's because somebody else is going to pay more for it, then when it drops, it's a bit of a problem. If it's based off, I go on Reddit and somebody else says, 1,500 of us, we each going to put in $1,500, and we're a Reddit mafia, let's just go buy this thing and pop this thing open. Yeah. Oh, baby, that sucker's going up. Like, that sucker's going up is big. Again, another Peter Lynch quote. He said, the worst rationale he's heard over time, it's always, Peter, that sucker's going up. That's why I'm buying it. I heard it on a bus. Like, that can't withstand volatility. But if I know, for Buffett as again, I don't recommend this for health reasons, but, as an avid soft drink consumer, and he's like, Coca-Cola has a moat around the globe. He's like, Coca-Cola is the one. Then, or Amex we talk about, right? Has a special prestige for American cars and things like that. So if you have a conviction in the business and the right people running the business, they are actually truly think like the owner of the business, then once you get, again, 3 Ps, product, people, price, when you have those things in place, go back to the basics and be like, this is just especially going down on something you like, you should be excited. It's generally opportunity. And generally, for the last week's crash and things like that, it to me, it was more like a correction that I look at as de-risking. Let's say if I like something at 700, I think the intrinsic value is 550. I bought it at 80. Now it's compounded a lot. When it goes from 700 now corrects to 550, how I think is now it's de-risking my portfolio a little bit for me. Now the further downside, now this is that equilibrium, the further downside for me can be adding opportunity, as long as the business fundamentals don't change. So most of the days, and this is an important thought to sort of conclude on this particular topic here, is I spend most days, like this morning, even before we sort of started, I was reading your notes, but also on another, I think I mentioned his blog a lot, right? The Mostly Bought Ideas. On his blog, I was reading about how he thinks this AI agent of this intermediate platform effect of does Amazon matter? Does the UI matter anymore? Do the DoorDash matter? UI matter if people are just gonna have agent to book for them and stuff. So I think I spend more time thinking about are the business is gonna change? If that's gonna change, then the enterprise value for a certain business might go to zero. Then I shouldn't own them. That's real risk in the long run. So I don't tend to look at price movement as risk, but I think about who's gonna disrupt this business, that type of thing. Or does Tesla have a moat in the electric car market? Or is Gen Z's everybody use Snapchat and TikTok, so Meta has no place anymore? Like, is that or does ChatGPT competes against market thinks very differently about Google these days than 2 years ago, right? Now it's up a lot. Before people think Google is going to be having the innovative dilemma, and then ChatGPT is going to disrupt them. So I think about how this business is going to play out. Those are real risks, and those I actually think are underappreciated risk. People don't nearly pay too much attention to that. I think of those as horrendous risks that can happen to a portfolio holding versus sort of just the price movement down 18% for a news that's not related, if that makes sense.
Sure. I think this is my last question to you.
Yep.
And I think although we've talked about a lot of important things today with both me and Angela,
Yep.
this might be the most important question of all. On my first day of us working together, we had a great day of work, very good, valuable insight back and forth between both of us. I was tired after a full day of work, and you're like, let's go do a workout. And I didn't have any workout clothes, and I wasn't prepared in any way for a workout. But regardless, after a long day of work, we still got our devotion to our health. And, you famously did much more pull-ups than I did, even though I consider myself pretty in shape. But, that takes a lot of skill, especially as you age more, to be dedicated to your health and to stay in shape and eat healthy and whatnot. How do you think your dedication to health, both in your own life and your own company, has affected your investment strategy? How have you grown as a result of your grown health over the years?
Great question. And that reminded me of, I think they were white grip pull-ups, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
They were wide grip pull-ups.
They were white grips.
I remember.
Yeah.
I actually have a video of it. We should probably post that someday.
We will.
As a short.
We'll add that to the clip.
That'd
We'll
be
make
great,
sure
yeah.
our friends here add that
That's
to the
awesome.
clip. That would be great. This clip will be exactly when Ryan's talking about this.
Exactly.
I'm proud of my back muscles on that one.
Yeah, of course. I remember.
Great question. I wasn't that healthy when I started. I always liked to play sports, hang out with friends, and we get together, play hoops, or go to the beach, and two of my really good friends are great surfers. I swim well, but I didn't have the patience to be a great surfer because they have to wait for the wave and everything. And I said, I spent all my discipline and energy in the markets already. Like, I have to freaking watch it because when you're not disciplined, you generally lose a lot of money, right?
Exactly.
So I don't want to be disciplined while I'm hanging out.
Yeah, you're already playing the waiting game.
Yeah, I'm generally in my hobbies. I'm looking for more instant gratification. If there's 5 lines waiting at pickleball courts, I'm like, I need a better court. We're gonna find somewhere that's empty.
Sure.
But for health, I think so. Energy. So I'll answer the different. So this is sort of Buffett's look at people's 3 traits, right? Intellect, energy, and integrity.
I love this part.
Without integrity, forget the first 2.
Yeah.
Without integrity, if somebody is not a good person, and I hope I'm not wrong on that, generally especially when I decide to have a close relationship with a person, is that then the problem is, Buffett's original words were saying, then the first 2 become very dangerous. If somebody who's not a good person, who doesn't have integrity, they're intellectual and they have energy, they do a hell of a lot of harm than somebody who just, lays back and chill, right?
Sure.
With that said, I think energy might be one of my, powers. I think generally, if you sort of do things you're passionate about, and then, as you are, I'm an extroverted person, so when I'm with someone else, I get energy from that too, energy from the room. But also, I think there are things, it just, once you build a habit in place, it's creative, it has a cycle on its own. So when my earlier the first 6 hours of my day, generally I'm digesting news, reading research articles, thinking about our portfolios, and the next and then at some point like midday I'll have a decent meal, then like reasonably healthy but not too heavy. Then after work I would go that time it's really dedicated for me to listen to music and work out, and then I kind of digest the day that way, and then have some outputs that's reasonable. Like I don't bench 350 or anything like that, but I just like kind of go in there, do what's injury free and reasonable, and then feel good for that out. That really rejuvenates the day, and then the end is, that's why I think there's great value to like how I know I kind of shitted on business school and stuff like that earlier, but like there's value to how when I went to my boarding school in Connecticut and other schools, I'm sure there's structure in place. Kids go to classes in the morning, right? Have lunch, have a little few classes in the afternoon. 3 p.m. Well, what do you do? Like generally, you have to play some sort of sports, do some afternoon activity, right?
Yeah.
So at my school, boarding school in Connecticut, shout out to Suffield Academy, that we were required to play 3 varsity sports per year round. So fall sports, so there's 3 sports. You don't have to be varsity, but if you get a huge letter if you play 3 varsity sports.
Sure.
But you have to pick a sport. You can be a JV team. You can be any team you want. Fall, winter, spring. Fall, winter, spring. You have to rotate. I think I did like fall soccer / football, winter basketball, of course, and summer and spring track and field. So, and the hardest one was track and field. But track and field actually laid the ground for all the other ones. So just the habit of doing that, I think has a cycle on its own, and it's become more and more important. And last thing I would say is probably sleep. Sleep is important. Like long term, you can get away with like 6 hours or something, like a one night, especially early on. Like I think I told you, like a 20 to 23, sometimes I can stay up all night and no problem next day and stuff. But generally later on in life, I think optimizing how to this. Brian Johnson has great content on this. Again, this is not a health podcast, but generally we will dive into a lot of. This is a general podcast. We'll have a lot of things that's in there. Brian Johnson has content on this, obviously with Blueprint. Andrew Huberman has great content on this. That how do you set up your day with a good night of sleep, and the next day how to function better, and that's very important from a physical standpoint. And lastly, I would say spiritually, it's if you have a purpose, then everything you do becomes much more. You do it with more of an it factor.
Interesting. Cool.
If there's a purpose and it goes with the identity. For example, that workout example, that our first day, generally, and this is again, also a lot of times people think certain traits are bad. They are not necessarily bad. Vanity, ego, certain these things might not be too bad in this way. I generally think I'm someone who is in shape all the time. So if my friends or people who know me know, oh, Robert's out of shape, then he's like in like mental health crisis. Like I gotta go fly. This hasn't happened. Hope not. I gotta go fly to see if something's going on.
Yeah.
But some people assume that's normality. But then this builds into the identity part, right? So you're a family person. To you, if your brother calls you, like if you, it's just who you are. You don't think if, yes, but ifs.
Sure.
For some people, they might be estranged for reasons that sometimes is not their fault. Like, but it's just not a part of who they are. But for me, that's always been sort of who I am and who I want to continue to be. So that makes sense. Just like public speaking, things like that is generally who I want to be. So I think that piece, that identity, I wouldn't let the day go by without generally having doing something active. And it's really people talk about this being now it's a trend and things like that. But for me, it's just generally being something like I love doing it. If I would pay, I tell my friends this all the time. I will pay I would love to get paid when I work out, but unfortunately, that's not the case. I would love to. We would love to get paid when we play pickleball, if we're professional players. Right?
Yeah.
So I think building to the habit, and to conclude this one is you are what you repeatedly do. So we're not what we say we would do. We're not what we hear what we do. We are what we actually repeatedly do. So when we repeatedly do something, it becomes a habit, and it can become a great thing.
Sweet. Well, I mean, obviously you've had a great career as being an investor. I know a lot about you, and I'm excited to get to know a lot more about you and your advice that you give. I think this podcast is an amazing opportunity to share with others, and I'm excited for what Pure Value Media really has to offer. This is really exciting stuff.
Thank you for being here, Ryan. And I think you have a great future ahead of you. A lot
Thank you.
of potential to be unlocked. And then I would credit this to, again, one of my really close friends. He mentioned this to me. He said, probably early on saw potential in him. We met in 2020, 5 years ago. I saw potential in him that he didn't see himself. I hope I think that's the case for you as well. There might be things you're able to do that your potential that you don't even know about. Hopefully we can unlock that together.
Of course. I'm excited.
Thank you, Ryan.